This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you. Big win last night as the Jets continue their winning ways and now hit the road on the dad's trip, or the dads and mentors trip, as they put it, to San Jose, Anaheim, and Arizona this weekend. Very busy week. Jets playing 5-7 and 3-4 beginning tomorrow night with a couple of late starts out on the West Coast. We're going to get into last night's win over Tampa, a look ahead to the road trip. Murat is going to jump on, and Murat's getting the business from Bones. That's just how fun things are around the Winnipeg Jets. Bones giving it to some of the media afterwards after another big win last night. Really looking forward to having Murat on. And we'll also welcome in JP Vigier, former NHLer. Always great to catch up with Vig. And, we talked to him towards the beginning of the season. We'll have JP on and just get his thoughts on how the Jets have done it. How are they playing right now? Where does the credit go? And just moving on. How do they continue this into the new year as they started it off with a nice win over the Tampa Bay Lightning last night? So Vigier, Murat, and then, as promised, we usually do this on the first day of the week, but we had a very busy show yesterday. Connor Hrabchak's going to jump in with us. We'll do a little roundtable, a little bit more on the Jets, as well as a look ahead to the final week of the regular season in the National Football League. Did just fire up the lock shop again with Jake Boland-Moss. Dusty's away for a couple more days. But for those of you that are joining us live on YouTube at 1, if you are kicking around at noon on weekdays, jump over to EST and join us in the lock shop as we talk about the games of the evening, hit some lines, make a couple of wagers, and hey, it was a good one last night if you got on the Jets. Our WST parlay came so close. We had the win. We had the Nikolai Ehlers goal. We just missed the Josh Morrissey assist, but we move on. Only 2 games tonight in the National Hockey League, but a big slate tomorrow, which we will discuss as well a little bit later on in the roundtable, along with a little NFL wrap-up from the week and a look ahead to Week 18. Listen, just before we bring in Michael Remis, have to thank the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day, led by our partners over at Coolbet Canada, Little Brown Jug, the Winnipeg Jets, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, F Apparel, Wallace & Wallace, Vita Health Fresh Market, Sport Manitoba, and Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, and Modern Man Barbershop. And we will get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Welcome to everybody in chat. What's going on, folks? Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. And welcome to you, Michael Remis. Another dub for the home team last night. Man, this team is rolling.
Yeah, wow. It's incredible what we're seeing. Best points percentage in the Central Division, 3rd best in the entire NHL. And you said, yeah, boys are rolling at home. How about this for their last 8 at home? If you've been to a game lately, 7-0-1 with the 1 overtime loss to Montreal. 2nd best home record in the NHL, 13-5-2. Wasn't it last year their record at home wasn't that great? And we're like, what's going on here with the Jets? They can't win at home, but they're winning on the home, winning on the road. 2-0 against Tampa this year. And the streak continues, Huss. 26 straight, letting in 3 or less. Franchise record. I believe the NHL record is 35 by the Minnesota Wild. And we have Connor Hellebuyck playing the way he's playing, one of the stars of December in the NHL. And you have Lauren Brossois filling in nicely as well. Maybe they could make some history. We'll see. But an incredible stretch here for the Jets, and now they hit the road on the Mentors trip. Exciting stuff for them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I see Jay Miller, the WST probably has never hit. What do you mean? The last one we did was for the Boston game, which was my Christmas present to all of you, with Balharry, Scheifele, Ehlers, Morrissey all getting on the score sheet and a Jets win. It was like plus 700. Come on, Jay.
Yeah.
After I fired that one up for you all at Christmas. Come on. Anyways, we'll hopefully get back in the win column with one of these games on the weekend. Listen, Remo, we're going to dive into, some of these stats, some of the numbers. But the one thing, I saw Mary Jane mention this in chat. And honestly, you know what the best part of last night's game was for me? Was the crowd. Listen, we knew that there'd be some good crowds around Christmas. I think we knew that Friday night game against Boston would be well attended, and it should have been the way the team has been playing. Minnesota last Saturday was awesome. I mean, it was a 1:00 game that didn't feel like one of those kind of lazy afternoon games, and certainly the rivalry between the Jets and Wild contributed to that. But it was a full barn, and close to another sellout last night. A great crowd, tons of energy in the building. And I'll be honest, usually that first Tuesday game in the new year in January is a bit more of a challenge. And I wasn't sure what to expect last night. I was a little concerned that we might get back to, some of those earlier crowds. But it's very clear that this fan base, for those that were maybe on the fence early on or for whatever reason, weren't at games or had given up their tickets, are back, and the team has absolutely earned their support back. I don't think there's any question about that. But, as nice it was to see the Jets get another big win and continue pushing for first place in the Central Division, for me personally, and listen, it's about getting wins and it's about getting scores, but considering the way this season started, and the way we were talking on this program after our first WST game and that game against the Kings early on, it is just great to see the fans coming back. And tell you what, winning cures a lot. The Jets have been winning a lot. And here's hoping that that will be the norm going forward when the Jets are back at home next week against Columbus to begin a 4-game homestand.
Yeah, attendance last night, Mike McIntyre tweeting out 14,157, third largest crowd of the season. The only two bigger ones, the past two home games, Minnesota and Boston. We thought it would take a step back, with just being Tuesday night and not exactly Friday night or the Saturday night of the other, or Saturday afternoon of the other attendance crowds. But I think this is a bit higher than maybe you thought, going back to the first Tuesday when we went to that Kings game, and it was low. And I think people are taking notice. The Jets are playing well. We're not expecting the second half drop off that we saw last season. And people want to go, look, we just said it here, 7-1 in the last 8. You're gonna go and see a nice W. And Bones said after the game yesterday, it wasn't exactly a Picasso, but hey, win's a win. You got to celebrate, and I got to be feeling good heading off to California, Arizona, bring the golf clubs. Perfect time of year to get out of Winnipeg, early January.
Although, and again, you know me, I'm a little superstitious, and I don't want to jinx anything. However, Mother Nature is already taking care of that, and we do, for the first time all year, have some highs of minus 20 in the forecast. But overall, this has been such a nice run for the Jets, coinciding with some abnormally warm winter weather so far. I think we're now into a little bit more of a normal run where it's minus 10, minus 9. And as I said, early next week, it looks like it is going to be a little chillier. But I'll tell you what, it's hot in that arena right now. And no team is hotter than the Winnipeg Jets, who did it again last night. And, another impressive defensive performance, Remo. The only way other teams can score on the Jets is phantom penalties, like what happened with Adam Lowry that set up the Tampa Bay first goal, and then starting the wave too early, which automatically results in a goal against, and that's how Tampa got their 2 goals.
You know, I don't want to like dump on the officials because like that's such an easy thing to do, and officiating, I think it's pretty impossible, and maybe they're not given appropriate tools to correct mistakes, like when they call a high stick wrong. But like, are the Jets just getting like screwed over and over again on calls? We saw it on Sunday with the Ryan Hartman just blatantly slashing Cole Perfetti in the face, and we're not done talking about that. And then yesterday, a little friendly fire. It's not Adam Lowry gets called for a high stick, and when Nino wasn't happy as well, going to the box. And there's been games this year where you don't know what's a penalty, then they call something that hasn't been called all game. I think officials just across sports, it's a tough job. It just seems like more and more it's happening. And yeah, you thought it was going to be rough start, Huss. They take Lowry goes to the box on a penalty he didn't even take, and Stamkos blasts one home. You're like, oh geez, this isn't going so hot here. But hey, they were able to rebound and score a couple straight, and win the game. And how about that? The highlight of the game for me, like Neil Pionk tipping a puck in around the high slot from a shot from Brendan Dillon. That was a huge one to tie the game in the second period, and Alex Iafallo goes, Perfetti takes it to the net. Iafallo follows it up for the go-ahead goal there. But they're certainly feeling it here. And Neil Pionk did say after the game, "What it's like when you're playing golf. It's just everything's going your way." And I can't recall like a defenseman tipping a puck in the high shot off a shot from a defenseman. They're rolling, and the fourth line getting in on it. Morgan Barron assisting on that one as well. Nemestikov. What a role he's playing, 3 assists. And yeah, Barron, I mentioned he had 2 points too.
Point a game, Toninato continues to do his thing as a point a game guy in the NHL, as recognized by Rick Bowness earlier on. Yeah, to use the golf analogy right now, the Jets are hitting all the fairways, their irons are dialed in, and the putts are dropping. And we saw it last night, and it wasn't. I thought the best of the Jets, maybe in the first period. And they did fall down, and Tampa's not a team that often loses when they get the lead early on. But the Jets were able to power through and I thought really, really exert themselves in the second and third period over a depleted defense core of the Lightning. It still is bizarre that they came into that game with 13 forwards and 5 defensemen. But when you were right up against the cap and you get injuries, it's not as easy to maneuver around them. And that was the situation that the Lightning were in last night. But from my perspective, Reem, like the top line's got a little quiet over the last week or so. But again, and we'll talk about this with JP Vigier about just how impressive the team overall is. There's always somebody else stepping up. And last night it was that line too. Like, I know Perfetti was all in the news yesterday for the Hartman incident and, the interview in the morning, talking about how he had said that he did it on purpose. And we've got an interesting clip on that in just a minute. But holy smokes, he seemed to be, I don't know if you remember that one play where he ran around Victor Hedman and then just put his shoulder down and took the puck to the net. Like, he's playing with a level of confidence that I don't think he had in the first couple seasons. Alex Iafallo continues to impress night in and night out. He is so good on the puck. He wins battles, good with the stick, in the right place. He got that goal last night. And Vlad was so good last night that at one point in the third period, Rick Bowness swapped Vlad and Mark Scheifele for a little while, which I think is another feather in the cap of Nemestikov, who continues to do whatever the team needs of him and do it very well.
Yeah, how about Nemestikov? Again, I said it before, 3 assists, ties a career high for him, and he's got points in 3 straight, 1 goal, 4 assists in 3 straight. Everyone seems to be rolling. Kind of funny, the top line was going so hard before. Ehlers, Velarde, Scheifele, they've kind of cooled off a bit, but hey, it's that fourth line, point per game. Toninato's in there. Barron's got points in consecutive games. Nemestikov, we mentioned. It's absolutely incredible how much this team is rolling. And yeah, Perfetti, he doesn't get phased. He gets slashed in the face, and he comes and laughs it off in a press conference, and walks around Victor Hedman. And you mentioned the Lightning rocking 5D. Hedman relied on heavily 29 minutes, 14 seconds for him. And you kind of thought, I thought it was going to be a letdown game for the Jets just because they had, the back-to-back against Minnesota Tuesday night. But no, they were able to persevere through not at their best. And, you do have to give credit to the anchor back there, Connor Hellebuyck, stopping 32 of 34. This guy is on
awesome last night.
A historic streak. And I hadn't really thought about it until he hit like 250 career wins. And he's like, no, I'm trying to get 300 or whatever. He's at the top of the NHL on Money Puck, goals saved above expected. He's on his way to a Vezina Trophy nomination. We'll see about a win. But, man, I think he's going to be the first Jets 2.0 player in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And that's a long time away. I mean, he just signed
7 more years.
He just signed a 7-year deal. So that's that's at least 11 years away. But still, we're witnessing greatness here from Connor Hellebuyck, and the NHL's announcing their All-Star, the first batch of All-Stars tomorrow. Player in December. I imagine it's going to be Hellebuyck from the Jets, and you hope that they can get 1 or 2 more, but the rules are dumb where, they have to have a representative from every team, so not everyone who is deserving to be an All-Star gets named an All-Star.
And I think I've said this a couple times before. I would be fine with Hellebuyck not playing in the All-Star game. Give him a little bit of extra rest and get out and do it. I mean, honestly, but the thing about it is he deserves it. And he wants to be there. He wants to be recognized amongst the best in the game. So yeah, when those names are announced, I would assume that Connor Hellebuyck is going to be the Winnipeg Jet named. And then we're all going to have to step up and do some serious voting, because it's fan voting for the other 12 spots. We are coming from somewhat of a disadvantage in the smallest market in the National Hockey League. So when I would assume, I think Josh Morrissey's probably the most likely guy. If you look at it, Mark Scheifele certainly deserves consideration. It won't be Kyle Connor because of the injury. Gabriel Velarde was hurt and missed too much of the first part of the season. So I think that the best chance of another Winnipeg Jet is probably Josh Morrissey going there. But again, we'll see what happens when they announce the All-Stars tomorrow. And, we'll talk about that with Connor when he jumps on with us a little bit later on. Listen, Reem, I do want to get to some clips from the game last night. But this morning on the Jeff Merrick show, Elliot Friedman jumped on with JM, and it is kind of funny. There was a ton of games last night. There was lots coming out of the evening in the National Hockey League. They did say that they were going to talk about the Jets' win over Tampa, and never quite got to that because they got a little sidetracked talking about the aftermath of, Perfetti's interview yesterday and all the nonsense that happened with the Minnesota Wild over the course of the weekend. Here's Elliot Friedman on Perfetti and the Jets being incensed, to say the least, over what transpired over the last few days. Listen to this. This is from the Jeff Merrick show earlier today on Sportsnet.
I think there's a couple of things here. Number one, I heard the Jets were livid behind the scenes, and they're still mad about the Connor injury. They're mad that a player who has a long rap sheet got away with a fine here. I think they feel that, Dylan answered the bell and Lowry answered the bell. So why should it continue? And I also would not be surprised here, and I believe it's true, that the Jets were angry over who was the target. They were like, Cole Perfetti had nothing to do with this, and he's a young player who's had some injuries, and they were angry that he was the person who suddenly had to answer for all of this. And I think all of that, Jeff, it was not an accident that got out yesterday. the Jets were making a point.
All right, so there's Elliot on that, and you know what? I love it. I love it. I hated what happened to Perfetti. Listen, I mean, I think most of us around here thought that it was an absolute massive overreaction to basically was a nothing play. I don't want to diminish the fact that Kaprizov got injured, but I mean, I've said this over time. That happens 25 times a game. So, listen, the Wild have a knack for taking things way too far, in particular Ryan Hartman. And listen, the Jets are livid, and they should be. And I think this entire fan base is. And it's the end result for this is going to be February 20 is going to be a circus here in Winnipeg when the Minnesota Wild come back. That might be the most anticipated game. And I've already had people send me messages, Remo, that they have made a point of getting their tickets for February 20th right now because they imagine that thing will be that'll be full. But another interesting point that Elliot made earlier on in that is that, and listen, he's correct, and he knows that the media is somewhat Toronto-centric because certainly the Canadian media, for the most part, national media is all based there. It is very clear that despite the gaudy record that the Jets have, not many of the national media pay much attention to the Winnipeg Jets. Like, they're not tuning in on Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon watching what happened between Winnipeg and Minnesota. And I was watching Sportsnet yesterday afternoon. Kipper and Justin Bourne were on. And I was livid hearing those guys talk about this. Now, they had no clue about what had happened before. And they had said that they loved it. They loved the move that Hartman did. And I took exception to it. And actually, Justin's a great guy. We used to do some work together with Coolbet. So we had a little bit of a back and forth. And he basically said, no, we didn't see the play at all. This was sort of in a vacuum. We just, heard the clips and found what out. And, I sent him, I go, this is what it was all about. Like, check out this play. He's like, good Lord, I can't believe that all of this is stemming from that. And it sounded like there had been other retribution. It's unfortunate that people are paying attention to the Winnipeg Jets because of that incident, as opposed to what the team has done on the ice so far this year. But I have a feeling if the team keeps winning this way, that will change. And I do know that all those people will actually pay attention on February 20th when the Wilds are coming back to the Peg.
Yeah, I love that clip from Elliot because as Cole Perfetti came out yesterday and almost laughed it off, beyond belief. Behind the scenes, it was nice to hear that the Jets were livid as many people here in chat, as livid as maybe I was, not be able to believe that a human being would do that to another person. Be like, yeah, I'm going to hit you in the face here with my stick. And they did comment how Cole Perfetti was wearing a mouth guard, which is probably why he only got 2 stitches and didn't lose all his teeth.
He would have lost the top row of his grill for sure.
But it's so ridiculous that a guy with that kind of history got his 7th fine. It doesn't get a suspension for that. So ridiculous. So credit to the Jets. And you talk about player safety. There was an incident, with Nick Cousins hitting a guy who was had his knee on the ground, and then Jason Zucker.
He didn't just hit him; he left his feet to do it.
So they just announced right now, Huss, that. Nothing for Cousins, but Jason Zucker got a hearing for coming to the defense of his teammate and this player's safety. They're out to lunch so often, and I don't know, it's disappointing that, a guy like Hartman, who's got a history, only gets a, $4,000 fine, which is nothing. So we'll see what happens February 20th. Hopefully, you don't want to see anything serious happen, but you expect the league to take care of this kind of stuff here.
Do we think, and again, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are listening to this or watching this probably didn't see it because it was a late game last night. And is this fine territory or might there be a game for Zucker? It's obviously nothing's happening for Cousins, right?
What did I tell you? Yeah, I don't know. But it is interesting because, as you said, if Cole Perfetti was a player on Toronto and got slashed in the face, or Montreal.
That's what I said to Bourne in the tweet. I'm like, You guys say that you love this. How different would this segment sound right now if it was your boy Mitchie Marner that got it in the face off the face-off in a direct bit of retaliation for something he had nothing to do as opposed to Cole Perfetti? Somehow I think you wouldn't be yucking it up and loving it as much as you seem to on today's show.
Yeah, and I don't mind like physical play if it's part of the game where, someone's got a hit, you want to blow him up, go do that. Go hit him and, make a clean hit. But again, stick a guy in the face. Now we're getting to this rabbit hole of yesterday.
Yeah, I know.
We should be celebrating this Jets win. I do have the bonus clips if you want to. They're in a pretty good mood. I mean, bonus joking with Murat in the post game, and Neil Pionk cracking jokes as well. They're just in a great mood. A great timing for this mentors trip as well.
No doubt about it. Okay, listen. Let's stay on track. Let's not let the Ryan Hartman incident get us to where we were yesterday. Bones was pleased. I mean, this was a game where maybe the Jets weren't as good for 60 minutes as they'd been at times, but they continued to do their thing. Got a big 4-2 win. Here's what Bones had to say about last night's win.
No, the guys have all bought in from day one, and that's what it is. It's just complete buy-in from everybody. Tonight we were slow out of the gates. There's no question. They were coming at us, but good teams find a way to win. And tonight wasn't a Picasso by any stretch early in the game, but when we got our legs going and we started to play Winnipeg Jet hockey, when we get committed to that, there's not a team in this league we can't beat.
There's not a team in this league we can't beat. And I was saying the exact same thing in some text messages to some friends after that game before we heard Rick Bowness. This team can go toe-to-toe with the best teams in the league. I legitimately can't wait to see them get another crack at Vegas and Dallas, who they played in the first month of the season when they hadn't quite got to this level. See how they do against those teams that have had their way with Winnipeg this year. But, just look at this past month. Colorado, Los Angeles, the Boston Bruins, the Minnesota Wild twice, Tampa Bay Lightning. The Jets are beating some quality teams, even if I included the Wild in that group. Bones was asked about, and this was Rennie's question, about, what happened in the first period. What does he have to say to these guys? How does he handle a team, that's down, that maybe hadn't been at the level they'd been before? Here's what he had to say about getting them going after that first period.
Our players know, man. I walk in, I say, it's obvious what's happening out there. Even after the second one, we got those 2 goals. It was obvious. Get the forecheck going, get our D involved, and we're tough to beat. So we didn't do that in the first. We did it in the second. So we're at the point now. I just have to bring those things to their attention, and they don't have to go into great detail because they see it. This team is committed. This team is a smart hockey team, and they are. We're playing the right way for the most part, and they see it as well as I do. Right? They're pros. They know.
So you're not tweaking the system to adjust to what they're doing?
Sometimes we do, but it's not so much tweaking the systems, it's tweaking what we're not doing well. Whether it's skating or not getting the puck deep or our breakouts. And like tonight, I didn't like a lot of our breakouts early. We kept trying to come up the strong side. They're taking it away. You got to come out the weak side. We got to come out the weak side. So those are things we talk a lot about on the bench during the game.
That was an interesting one from Bones. And I mean, I don't know whether in my lifetime we'll ever get to the point where, maybe we can pay for extra access and just have a camera or a mic, on what's going on in the dressing rooms in between periods. But man, it would be fascinating to hear the interactions that we don't see of what happens in between periods with NHL teams. But as Bones said, Reem, often he doesn't have to say too much. And I believe him. I think this team knows exactly what they've been doing so well. They continue to do it well, and they got back to it big time in that second period, and the goals followed.
Yeah, they seem to all be on the same page, sticking to the system, and they know if they, do what the coaching staff has instructed and what they've been doing all year, they're putting themselves in a pretty good chance to win. And Yeah, they had a rough first and got back into it. 2 goals in the second, and wasn't technically the game-winning goal, the second goal, because of scored the second
because of the wave.
Yeah, because of the wave, right? Exactly, but it was the go-ahead marker. So, hey, credit to the Jets team. All 4 lines playing pretty well, and I'm sure the top line will get on the scoreboard pretty soon. But really nice win, 2-0 against Tampa this season. Pretty impressive stuff.
Well, season sweep of the teams in Florida.
Yeah.
2-0 against the Panthers, 2-0 against the Lightning. I saw somebody on Twitter, I unfortunately I can't remember who it was, saying, when was the last time that happened? I mean, I haven't checked. I would bet that it's never happened. I mean, maybe in 17, 18, maybe. But I mean, Tampa was a juggernaut then. So, listen, the body of work speaks for itself.
Before you hear a couple numbers, how about the East? The Florida? How about the East? 10-0-3 against the East. And how about this? Talk about locking it down. 18-1-1 when leading after 2. Just incredible numbers here from the Jets.
Well, and Hrabchak, of course, was the first star last night. And the Helly Selly's always better when he's the first star. He came out and had some good time with the fans last night. And I mean, listen, the other guy that was a monster yesterday was Nemetsnikov. And I'll include that entire line. I mean, Iafallo was great. Perfetti was phenomenal. And it's a line that if you told me at the start of the year we'd be going into 2024 talking about a top 6 that includes Perfetti, Iafallo with Nemetsnikov, and that would be the difference-making line against Tampa, I would have taken it, but I probably wouldn't have believed it. But that's where we are. Here's what Bones had to say about the continued contribution of Vladdy the Batty.
When Vladdy started there, we were explaining to him what was going on. This is what's going to happen. Just be patient here. Everything's going to fall into place for you here. Just this is the way we're starting, but this is not written in stone. So full confidence in Vladdy. I love Vladdy from the days we had him in Tampa. He's a smart hockey player, and you see him tonight. So I moved to marking him around in the third period. He just settles in with whoever he plays with, and he's very calm with the puck. Vladdy never throws the puck away, and that with the empty net goal is a perfect example of it. So I trust him in every situation.
Yeah, and he was the beneficiary of a bit of a gift from Vasi last night. Turned it over to Nikolai Ehlers, and the Jets were up 2 and never looked back. The big one, though, getting on the scoreboard was Neil Pionk, who had a perfect deflection in the slot from his defense partner, Brendan Dillon. Pionk was in good spirits after the game. Here's what he had to say about his goal.
Yeah, about time he found me. No, I'm just kidding. We honestly made eye contact in the corner, and I said this might happen, and I actually got a piece on it and actually went in. Couldn't believe it.
What was the celebration like?
Almost disbelief. For me to high tip it there is kind of crazy. I know we had good net front too, so I don't know if he even saw it, but it was a good play all around.
So at this point, you come off of a really big December, start January the right way. What's going so well for you guys overall, team-wise?
A lot of things are clicking 5-on-5. We're playing good team defense, and when we break down, we got the best goalie in the league to bail us out. So had a few breakdowns tonight, and he really bailed us out, and it was a good team win overall.
All right, we got a couple more quick clips from Pionk, and then we'll get to JP Vigier. Listen, this number is now the 3rd longest streak since 1967 in the NHL of allowing 3 goals or less. 26 straight. Here's what Neil Pionk had to say about that interesting statistic.
Yeah, business as usual. We played our structure, we stick to our systems, and like I said, when we break down, Bucky bails us out, everything's kind of clicking right now, 5-on-5. I kind of compare it to shooting your low golf round of the year. Like everything just clicks. You're doing everything right, and that's kind of what we're doing. We're keeping to the outside, limiting chances, and playing really well 5-on-5.
All right, and we'll also be getting into over the next few days the Jets on their dads and mentors trip. Pionk had a hilarious line on the upcoming mentors trip where a lot of the dads and important male figures in the Winnipeg Jets players' lives are going to be coming along for the ride.
Oh, yeah. I think we have 30 coaches coming with us. So there'll be a lot of X's and O's. You know what? They should put a whiteboard in the suite and see which dad grabs it first, drawing out plays. It'll be fun. Yeah.
What's the biggest difference between when your mom went on the trip and you think your dad's going on this one?
Well, when you lose and your mom's there, it's okay, honey, it's gonna be all right. And when you lose and your dad's got an idea how to fix it, right? So it's it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I did a dad's trip in New York and then the mom's trip a few years ago in Winnipeg, so we're excited for it.
I know Alex Iafallo said in that New Year's resolution video that the Jets put out that he thinks that Neil just, quote, needs to tone it down a bit. Not if he's doing a stand-up act like that after the game. A few good cracks from number 4 yesterday and a big goal in the game last night. Listen, we're going to get to JP Vigier right away. Murat coming up a little later on. We will get into a bit of a WST roundtable with Hrabchak and Remis later on in the program. But as I mentioned right off the top, an awesome crowd last night. Let's keep this going, Winnipeg. Right now, tickets are on sale for this 4-game homestand beginning next week, and there are some beauty games. It starts off with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like Liney's going to be in the lineup at that point. But Connor Bedard coming in on Thursday with the Chicago Blackhawks, and that young man alone is worth the price of admission. We've got a Saturday night game, which should be awesome against the Philadelphia Flyers. Philly lost last night in Edmonton, but man, they have been a tough out on the road. That should be a great game. And then the New York Islanders on Tuesday. Of course, they still do have 4, 6, and 8 game packs available. And I think that if you, if you give them a ring and hook up with those seats, you'll also be in line to get playoff tickets. And I know there's a lot of runway left to go, but not unreasonable to start maybe saving a little bit and getting ready for playoff hockey here in Winnipeg. You can find it out now, winnipegjets.com/tickets. And I would also suggest if you're thinking about getting back in season tickets or whatnot, they would love to hear from you as well. Hey, let's give a cheers to our friends at Canadian Club for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk, and of course the Winnipeg Blue Bombers is the official spirit. Pop by your local Manitoba liquor marts and enjoy the best of Canadian Club, including the favorites, Original CC, the 100% Rye, CC Classic 12-year-old, and don't forget there's limited availability left of the special Canadian Club Invitation Series, CC 15-year-old Sherry Class, the signature Canadian Club 12-year-old whiskey, finished with a secondary aging in Oloroso sherry casks, all the hallmarks of classic Canadian Club with the added richness and sweetness of sherry. And right now, this year, whenever you're enjoying Canadian Club, always enjoy responsibly. Hey, I got to give a shout out to Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery. We, as I mentioned, you look ahead into the forecast and it's finally coming. We can't be too upset. We knew it was going to happen at some point, but it's going to be getting real cold, colder than it's been all year long. Are you ready for it? If you're not, get to Manitoba Battery or just give them a call because they've got the best prices in batteries for your car, your truck, period, hands down, beating the pants off the big box stores. And you won't even need to leave your house to get it. Manitoba Battery delivers citywide for free with any purchase for $60. So pick up the phone, 783-8787, or go to manitobabattery.com. Get ready for winter. Hopefully it won't be too long or too extreme, but you won't be calling a friend from the side of the road asking for a boost with the help of Manitoba Battery at 1026 Logan Avenue. And hey, new year, new look, new you. Maybe it's time, fellas, to get a new look for 2024. Get on down to Modern Man Barbershops at one of 8 Winnipeg locations, including the newest locations on Pembina Highway or Plessis Road, for haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. Easiest and most efficient way to make an appointment is to book your look online via modernmanbarber.com at any of the 8 locations. And give them a follow on Instagram while you're at it, at Modern Man Barbershops. All right, Murat is coming up in a few minutes. But right now, let's welcome in JP Vigier for his thoughts on the Winnipeg Jets up till this point in the season. Vij, Happy New Year. What's going on?
Happy New Year. Just another quiet day at the house before we hit the ice this afternoon.
Yeah, well, not a quiet night at the rink last night, and there hasn't been many of them lately. It's been a minute since we've spoken. How about those Jets?
Yeah, who are those Jets, huh? They are really starting to find themselves. It's an exciting brand of hockey to watch where everyone's involved, and you can feel the intensity pick up as the season progresses here.
We can kind of get into a few aspects of the game where they've been very successful, ways they can be even better, the roster. But let me just ask you, Vij, as a guy that's followed this team for a long time, that has played in the National Hockey League, when you look at the Winnipeg Jets this year as a team compared to what we talked about last season, where do the differences start? What's been the most impactful change with the Winnipeg Jets that has them flirting with the number one spot in the division in the whole NHL?
I think the key word you said there, Huss, team. They are a team. We've always heard of clicks or riffs within the dressing room at different times with different players, and I haven't heard anything this year. It has been all about the we. They have all pulled the same rope. They have all looked for success at different times. Winning cures a lot of hidden issues, and right now, to me, the biggest thing for the Winnipeg Jets is the team, isn't individual players, because we're getting contributions at different nights. It's the way all 20 players play, no matter who's in the lineup. They're playing a certain way, but they're playing for each other, and we're seeing that. Even when, the fisticuffs of the war of Minnesota the other night, things linger, but different players are stepping up and taking, responsibility for the game. And it's not always the same guys, but it's fun to see because now we have an identity that the Winnipeg Jets are finding. We always wondered what it would be, and now it is.
Vij, and I don't want to bring this back to just talking about last year and the years before, but the one thing Rick Bowness has said right off the bat at training camp and continued through is that he's got a group that every single person wants to be here. And I think it was exhausting for probably a lot of players in that room to hear all the discourse about Pierre-Luc Dubois and what was going to happen or what wasn't going to happen. And of course, the Wheeler situation. We can talk about the new players that came in the Kings trade, or Niederreiter and Nemetsnikov, but how much does a team benefit from just having a clear focus on the job at hand, knowing that everyone really is there for the same purpose and they're pulling on the rope the same way?
It makes a huge difference. It takes away all the distractions. It takes away all the not the bickering, but behind the scenes, that doesn't work in the world of a team. If you look at all great teams that have had great success, we don't hear of, it's this player needing to do that. It's that player. Look, Colorado Avalanche, they win a Stanley Cup. What do you hear? Nathan McKinnon's the leader of that team. He's pulling that rope. Rantanen, those guys are doing the right things at the right time, right? They're doing the good things. Cale Makar, Detroit Red Wings of the 80s. You don't hear Steve Yzerman complaining that he didn't get enough ice time or didn't get enough points, and so on. If you look at every contending team, there has to be a symmetry to what they're doing. I don't know if Winnipeg Jets are going far in the playoffs. We're at Christmas here. There's a long way to go before that. But you feel that there is a symmetry to their team. Every player is engaged. Every player understands how they're going to succeed. And we're seeing individual success, but we're seeing the individual success because of the team success and how things are being done.
Well, and listen, I'll lean on your NHL experience for this as a guy that, played at different points in the lineup, at times was the American Hockey League, was an early call-up, would get a chance to play. Maybe one of the most impressive things outside of the style that they play and how consistent they've been is how many different guys have had a hand in these victories. And I look at last night's game. Dominic Toninato, with the way that he's played in these four games, is coming up to the Moose. Hey, Rick Bowness called him a point-a-game player on the weekend, and he's sticking to it with another one last night. Axel Jonsson-Fjällby as well, Moose at the start of the year coming up. It really does seem like there is a certain level of expectation with the club that every player kind of meets on a nightly basis, but a level of competition to stay in your spot, to earn your ice time, because everybody else is doing their job night in and night out. I'm not sure what we can attribute that to, but what have you seen the same thing, and how much does that help a team continue to push forward in the fashion the Jets are right now?
Yeah, a little internal competition goes a long way in any team because every player's playing for contract, pride, and their status. So I attribute two things. One, Rick Bowness making this a family. He has talked nothing about him or I. It has been we and the group since he's gotten here. I think the wheels fell off the rail a little bit last year, and he blew up at the end of the year saying that things weren't the way they started. And two, leadership on the team. The leadership has had accountability, has had an acceptance, and having everyone be part of the team. Player gets called up, you don't feel that player be neglected from the group. That player is right into the family, right? If it's Dominic Toninato, if it's Axel Fialbi, whoever it is, they come in and they feel part of the group. So that leadership group is, bringing everyone in, having that inclusivity that you want to see in a group, and that makes everyone feel like they can contribute. And we're seeing that. It could be the first line, it could be the third line. A different night, it's a second line. So that really makes everyone join in at the hip. And I think once you get to that point where everyone feels like they have one hand on the prize, they're going to work a little bit harder. They're going to do a little bit more. And then you add that competition. Geez, if I don't go good, there's a couple guys that are, training right now that are injured or coming back. I got to prove that I'm better than this guy. So like if the Winnipeg Jets ever get to a healthy lineup, there's some serious questions about who's going to be in and who's going to be out, because there's Gustafsson, Kyle Connor, right? There's more guys just itching to get back into that lineup when they get healthy.
Well, never mind the blue line. We'll get to that in a minute. But, you mentioned the leadership group, and I think a ton of the credit has to go to Adam Lowry. He has been everything that was hoped for and more, and his line has been a huge part of the team's success. Josh Morrissey as well. But I want to ask you about Mark Scheifele, because the last couple seasons, listen, we had many conversations about where Mark was at, what his future might be. And I think we are all maybe surprised a little bit the way everything went down on Thanksgiving with the dual contract extensions. But something you mentioned a minute ago, guys are playing for a bunch of things, including playing for their contract. Well, Mark's not playing for that contract anymore. And it seems like with nothing else to worry about, big picture, he is more bought in than we've ever seen before. Specifically to Scheifele, what have you thought about his season so far? And I know they haven't been particularly hot this last little while, but how different does Mark look in not just points, but his 200-foot game compared to maybe the last couple seasons when I think there was a lot of noise around him?
Yeah, I don't know if having the contract has lifted the weight off his shoulders and saying, I'm going to be a Winnipeg Jet forever, barring unforeseen circumstances. But I think that has seemed lifted off his shoulders. And now we're seeing we're not extending a shift. The two things I look at is D-zone accountability has been lights out. And last year, what I felt I saw was an extension of the shift. The line would change, but he would look to extend his shift into the offensive zone to see if there was something happening and change on the back check. Now, as he's changing on the back check, so the player replacing him has got a whole pile of speed coming at him, and so the momentum of the team never really gets going north. It's always enveloped in speed coming at them. So at that point, the snowball effect happens. Now we're seeing him dump the puck, change, and the other line comes out and is roaring at the other team, and it snowballs. So when it comes back for him to get back onto the ice, he's going north instead of back checking where he wants to go. And I think that's enveloped and done the culture of the group. If we change at the proper time, we keep the momentum going our way, and we hand over the next shift, and understanding that the second, third, and fourth line are going to keep that momentum going. When I get my next shift, I'm going to have momentum, and I'm going to be going north with the puck, not back checking into our zone. And that makes a big difference. We're seeing them not play in their zone nearly as much, but when they are, they're quick and they're out in a hurry, which makes a difference for what we look at Mark Scheifele being a steadily defensive center right now, but he's actually just not playing in his zone that much because they always have a puck.
That is such a great observation about the shift and the shift links. And let's face it, that was something that Rick Bowness seemed to hammer on. What was it, his first week on the job last season? I mean, but it has been such a great development. And for Scheifele in particular, you see how maybe being a little less worried about some of those other things that might end up affecting the contract into just worrying about the one job that he and his teammates have right now, and that's winning hockey games. And listen, we don't... Go ahead.
So sorry, Huss. And I think, if you take away, he's been given more leadership now as well, right? Some of the players who have left were kind of the older statesmen of the group, and Mark Scheifele never overstepped his boundaries on that. There is none of that now. It's a 20-man leadership group, as Rick Bowness likes to put it. He's taken more of that on. And if the leader can't do it properly, you can't expect the others to do the same. So right now we're seeing Mark Scheifele say, I'm a leader, I have to do it the right way. And I think before we didn't quite have that out of him. And now we're seeing, I'm going to lead. Like, Mark Scheifele's fighting if he has to. We don't want to see that all the time, but he's bought in, right? And to me, when he does that, not that I want to see him do that, he's bought into this team and wants to make sure it goes in the right direction.
And listen, I mean, you'll probably only hear me cite a plus-minus statistic maybe 2 or 3 times in the entire calendar year, and I know we're just a couple days into January. Today is one of them, just because all of these things playing together. Scheif was a big-time plus player throughout his entire career, and the last couple seasons, things sort of flipped. And 2 seasons ago, minus 17, last year, minus 16, and now he's at plus 14. And again, I know there's a lot of factors and variables that go into that, but a lot of it comes down to attention to detail and commitment in the defensive zone. And I think it's safe to say we can all agree that I'm not sure Mark has been ever as good and is committed to that role right now. And the funny thing about it is, Vij, I think that's helping them score more.
It is, because he's not defending as much, right? It totally is. Like, people think he's got to play more offense. Well, how do you play more offense? The only controllables you have in hockey, get the puck and then go, right? So once he gets it, he doesn't have to give it up. But if you don't work properly to get it, you're not getting it back. And that National Hockey League isn't going to say, we've had our 20 seconds, it's fair play, here's your turn. But they're going to say, suck it, keep working, because I'm going to take it from you again.
JP Vigier with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. It's easy to kind of focus in on some of the interesting individual storylines, but back to your original point, this is a team. From an X's and O's perspective, when you watch this team night in and night out do what they continue to do, where did it start, Vij? I mean, what are the Winnipeg Jets doing better than their opponents night in and night out in general that's leading to their lofty spot in the standings?
Attribute 2 things. Connor Hellebuyck is having a dynamite season, which covers a lot of ifs and buts, but their identity as a group of 5 in their D zone. So if you don't have the puck, you got to play a certain way. And the Winnipeg Jets are doing that 1 through 20 in their lineup. So if they have the puck, go get up the ice, D-man included. If you don't have the puck, you got to make sure you're over the puck. So they're not spending a lot of time in their zone because the forwards are on top of the puck, but back pressuring through the deep offensive zone and the D's neutral zone. So they're creating a pile of turnovers in the neutral zone. Like, if the Jets are in their zone or hemmed in, it's not often that we see that. But we're seeing that detail not only in the offensive zone from an offensive standpoint, but the offensive zone from a defensive standpoint as well, which allows the D-man to be tied up. And how many times do we see a Morrissey or Pionk or DeMello or Schmidt, Stamberg, all those guys get a puck in the neutral zone to create offense again, as opposed to getting it deep in the defensive zone? We're seeing less time there because they're playing in sync all over the ice.
It's funny you bring up Helly because, he was the 3rd star of the month. It was announced yesterday. He and Brossoit's numbers through December are eye-poppingly good. But I have to admit, I don't think that he's been as close to as stressed on a nightly basis with what is thrown at him. And I think it's the blue line and every player in the lineup and the way they are playing together, connected, whatever you want to call it, that's helping that. How much has what the forwards have done helped the results for the guys on the blue line this year, and eventually LB and Connor Hellebuyck back in the net?
Yeah, 100%. It's helped both. So Connor Hellebuyck and Laurent Brossoit now know where the shot's coming from. The complaint was in the past years that he's got to go east-west, back to the other side. It's coming low. It's a backdoor tap-in. They know, make the first save. It's coming from here. On the 5-on-5, if we give up a shot, we want to give up a shot from these areas. So the goalies can focus on being square, big, and there. we haven't had to see the goalies make acrobatic east to west 2-pad stack saves on a nightly basis. So when they can control where things are coming from, you have a direct line on how to defend that. So then it's controlled, and then the net front becomes a battle, but you know where the rebounds are going if there is one. But Hrabchak and LB haven't had to throw rebounds out because they know where the puck's coming from. It's hitting them, and they're both big score goalies. So when's the last time, besides the first game against Minnesota, that we had to see an acrobatic save from one of the goalies? Connor Hrabchak makes a save looking the wrong way. That never happens, right? He got turned around. When you're having a hot streak, those hit you. But right now, he's big and square, and he knows where the puck's coming from.
Well, we've talked about this. I mean, it was with last night's win. I believe it's 26 straight games with 3 goals or less, which is the third longest streak since 1967. It is incredible. And I should mention, I mean, if you want to see where the biggest kind of data shows the turnaround of the Winnipeg Jets, look no further than the defense pairings. I mean, we heard a lot and we talked a lot about what the Jets need to do to improve their blue line. Well, when you look at defensive statistics right now in the NHL, Vij, like the Sandberg-Schmidt pairing has been number 1 in the league literally for 3 months in goals against and expected goals against. And when your third pairing is in that spot, a lofty spot, you're in a good place. But the Neil Pionk, Brendan Dillon pairing is there right now. And listen, we know what Josh Morrissey and Dylan DeMello do as well. How much of that is improved play by the blue liners doing their job maybe more efficiently? And how much is it more of everything else we've just talked about with the buy-in from everyone there? Because I think we all agree, and we've talked about that it all is there together. But man, you talk about a turnaround season for Neil Pionk, the way Nate Schmidt's holding his place in the lineup right now, with back to the competition, knowing who's coming back. I mean, it has been, I don't want to say stunning, because I think people hope that some of these guys had it in them, but I mean, the numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah, to me, the answer is C, all the above, right? The forwards are helping the D are helping the forwards. The goalies are making a save when they have to. So I think all of that really plays into it. And understanding that now they're getting support. No one's bleeding out the zone. They're not hung out to dry. How many 2-on-1s are we seeing the D-man from the Winnipeg Jets face on a nightly basis? I probably can't remember one in the last 3 games, right? So when you're not facing 2-on-1s, you're facing 3-on-3s. You're allowed to be more aggressive, stand up on the play, force a dump, right? All those kind of things lead to everyone feeling better about their game, but understanding where to go and where not to go, right? But I can't remember last time a Winnipeg Jets defenseman pinched and didn't have support through the middle by the F3 coming back and the 2 other forwards tracking. But we're not seeing that disconnect between forwards and D. That 5-man unit is tight, and hopefully we haven't jinxed it. And next game we're going to see a pile of 2-on-1s. But I think we're not seeing that from the Winnipeg Jets. They're tight defensively, but it starts from the offense out. So it's quite a turnaround. But the identity is sticking through thick and thin.
Well, that identity is the word I was just about to bring up. I mean, they have an identity as a team, a character kind of off the ice. And as you mentioned, winning is fun. And they're having a lot of fun right now. And listen, we've seen a team not quite in as lofty a spot. They've never been where they are right now, but close. And last season was a perfect example of that. And then things kind of went off the rails. Now, I think we'd all agree this is a very different team. We've just sort of laid it out. And anyone that was thinking that, New Year's Eve was midnight and the Cinderella story and this was going to revert, saw last night the way they battled against the Tampa Bay Lightning, a very good team, and got a win. That being said, Vij, going on the road, you got 3-4 right now against some teams that, are lower down in the standings, and then a 4-game homestand right now. What are the biggest challenges for the Winnipeg Jets in maintaining this, continuing through this next? And we'll just talk about the period up until the All-Star break because of the way that the schedule's sort of, chopped up.
Yeah, managing people's ice times. I think we're starting to see that fourth line get a few more shifts, game by game, if they continue to do what they're doing.
Well, and they're deserving it, Beach. I mean, yeah, it's hard not to. And that's a good sign. I'm not sure that would have happened in the past if the line was playing the way that they were.
Yeah, correct. And I think just giving them 2 more shifts a game, right? Maybe it's late in the third. We saw late in the third period last night that fourth line was out, right? With a 2-goal lead. Normally we don't see that. So having a confidence in them, that'll take maybe one shift off of Mark Scheifele that doesn't wear him and grind him down that night. And if you can get those minutes to, 9 to 12 for that fourth line, that means your first line is more like 18. So when they're going. They're not having to pace themselves because they're up in the 22, 24-minute range. And because once you get there, that the next 5 weeks become a grind. So really managing ice time, I think, is going to be important for the Winnipeg Jets. And rest and recovery. This is going to be that West Coast grind where time changes, long flights. They're going to have to be smart on recovery, and I think it's going to be very important. They've gotten their off on the right foot to continue that right foot right from the start.
Well, it's the dad's trip, and as Neil Pionk said, they're traveling with 30 coaches. So it'll be important to keep what's going on right now. Vij, always great having you on the program. What's going on at the Hockey Academy? How's everything with you heading into to 2024?
Yeah, really good. We finished off 2023 on a real good note, starting off 2024 a couple days ago. We've been up and at it on the ice. We are in Carmen on tomorrow for a clinic. We are back on the ice tomorrow evening in St. Norbert Arena, bringing our Long Johns as one cold rink. But then we have our spring lineup starts April 1st, 7 weeks of development. We're looking to be upwards in 120 kids a week, seeing them twice a week. So we're going to look to have some fun and continue to grow. Our summer lineup should be out in the next 10 to 15 days. And, we're just looking to continue to have fun. I'm a big kid. I got to get on the ice. I might not be quite as skilled as I used to, or the conditioning is not quite as good as it used to be. But we love to go out there and have fun.
You can find out more at Vigier Hockey. And that sounds like chaos, to be honest with you. That many kids going
Absolute chaos, but it's so fun.
Hey, speaking of chaos, just before we go, my pal Dustin Nielsen from the Lock Shop was calling the Spengler Cup, and I got thinking about you and your experiences at the Spengler. For folks that maybe have just caught it flicking around TV, what is the Spengler experience like from your memories, both for a player and, what you saw going on around you as you tried to win that tournament?
So you figure it's a week-long tournament, and it is party central. This community normally has 3,000 or 4,000 people in it in the winter. Well, during this week to 10-day stretch, there's probably about 30,000 or 40,000 people in the community. So they're skiing in the slopes all day. They come watch hockey games. There's what they call hot tents, where they sell hot wine, and people just hang out like an outdoor social there and just have a great time. And now you're focusing on the oldest professional hockey tournament in the world right now. You picture when little kids go to tournament and they play 5 games in 4 days. Now you picture a bunch of 30-year-old men trying to play 5 hockey games in 4.5 hockey days to win a gold medal. This is probably one of the hardest tournaments you're ever going to play in, because you finish your semifinals at 10 o'clock that night, and the next day you're playing the finals at noon. So that turnaround is insane. We watch players lose somewhere between 8 and 10 pounds of weight during that week. It is such a drag and such a grind of a tournament, but it's such a great atmosphere and so much fun. I got medals, hats, and banners all over the house of that tournament. And if you want to go catch a cool tournament, besides World Juniors is good, this Spengler Cup tournament, the rink is old. It's all wood. People are chanting the whole game. They don't even know what the score is. They're just chanting. They have these sing-along things that they do. It is insane. For 6,000 people in the rink, it sounds like it's 20.
Well, you know what? I've obviously have had a chance to see the World Juniors here in Canada, but bucket list items are Spengler and the holidays and the World Championships when it's over in Europe at one of those places. But what's it like for being a Canadian, like as a Canadian player? Just quickly fill us in on the process, because these guys are all playing on different teams. When do you get the call? How does it work? And how much time do you guys have to get ready for teams that have been playing together throughout the year?
Yeah, and that's the challenge is some players get picked up starting middle of November, early December. Hockey Canada starts to make a team. They've identified their staff, and they piece away a team of players all over Europe. Some are playing in the American League. So we really have 25 players coming together. And there's a couple of years I missed the first game and just showed up for the second because of scheduling and stuff like that. So really guys are just coming in and trying to make a team out of 25 guys from all over the place. It's quite an event. It's quite exciting, the energy that comes into it. I never had the opportunity to wear the Maple Leaf flag till the Spengler Cup. So it's always a great honor, but what fun it is. I can't say, I don't know how they do it so fast, but the team always seems to get better as the tournament goes on.
2024 resolution. We're shutting the Vigier Hockey Academy down for a few days. Remo and Connor can take over the show, and we're going back to Switzerland for the Spangler.
I'm in.
Vij, have a great one. Happy New Year to you and your whole team there at Vigier Hockey. Look forward to doing this again, and thanks as always. We love having you on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Sounds good, guys. We'll talk soon. Thank you.
All right, great stuff with Vij. Murat's jumping on in just a couple of minutes. And Connor Hrabchak pumping on, and we'll do a little roundtable later on towards the end of the show. Hey, gang, new year. And that means some new resolutions. And if you're looking to maximize the benefits to your health, might I suggest an early 2024 trip down to Vita Health Fresh Market, where you'll find great prices on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries, and Winnipeg's largest selection of local products, too. Supplements can help you in many ways. And Canada's #1 line of men's health supplements, Prairie Naturals, are available at all Vita Health stores. Pick up Prairie Naturals and help address prostate health, andropause, low libido, low testosterone, stress, male energy, and performance. And of course, when you're shopping at Vita Health, you're supporting a great local company, family owned and operated since 1936. Vita Health, empowering people to lead healthy lives. 6 Winnipeg locations and online at myvita.ca. Our friends at Wallace & Wallace entered 2024. Another year as the fencing and overhead door specialists in town, serving residential and commercial customers since 1946. And we know what that forecast says coming up next week. That's right, it's getting cold. And hey, winter puts much more stress on your garage door. The right time to prevent downtime this winter is now. Call Wallace & Wallace to book your inspection and maintenance service. Call today for residential and commercial overhead door sales and service. There's only one name, or two you need to know, and that is Wallace & Wallace. And hey, speaking of getting into the new year looking good, guys, if you look into the closet and realize that for this year you might need to upgrade yourself in the menswear department, get on down to Winnipeg's own F Apparel at 190 Smith Street. The best prices in town on custom-made suits to make you feel and look great, beginning at just $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories you won't find anywhere else. Get on down there at 190 Smith Street, and you can find out more and make an appointment at EPHapparel.com. Don't forget 15% discount for wedding parties as well if you need to get your suits for the big day, and keep them afterwards to wear them throughout. All right, this is going to be quite a bit of fun. Our weekly visit with Murat Atesh. And there's a lot going on around the Jets these days. The team's winning. The vibes are high. Spoke about, and let's face it, some of the biggest stories in the media room last night were Neil Pionk's goal, the upcoming Mentors trip. And if you ask Rick Bowness, well, potentially Murat Atesh's hair. Listen to this one from last night's post game.
This is probably the first time in, a month where Scheifele's line didn't dominate flow of play. So
they were in their zone, in our zone a little bit too much. So we made the switch with Vladdy and then him going into the third.
You figure you'll go right back to them based on their success?
We'll see.
Fair play. Power play coming closer.
Did you ever see that episode of Seinfeld with the hair, with the barber? That's what it reminds me of.
I gotta look that up now.
I can tell you that. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
Bones and Murat. Bones loves, Bones has great hair, and so does Murat, and even better for today. I think maybe you took this one to heart from the Seinfeld reference last night. Murat, come on in. Looking like $1 million US tax-free as always.
Thanks for having me. I want to thank my hair team, Haley Penner. I would like to thank my dad for leaving his old shirt at my house, and Bones for being a funny man with honestly great hair.
I think that's why I think he may, as a guy with, at his age, the lid that he brings to the table every day, I think maybe he felt that, you
crossed him or something like that by actually getting a haircut. He's tapped me on the back after scrums. Like, we've talked about this a couple of times now, and he just wants to make it very clear he likes that it's cleaned up, because it was getting a little long, it was getting a little shaggy. So here we go. It's like John Lewis' suits.
You know what? I mean, it was such a funny moment, and there's been a couple of them lately. But in a lot of ways, Murat, I think it speaks to, where this team is at. And we all know how much fun winning is. This team's been doing a lot of winning. The team's having a lot of fun, and even the coach is having a lot of fun with the assembled local media when he hits the microphone.
Yeah, I mean, they won again, right? Like, how do you even begin to differentiate between wins at this point? They go, was it 10-1-2 in the month of December, 1-0 so far in January? It's been a long time since we've watched them struggle. And when they're having a good time, when everybody who's there wants to be there, and you mentioned that earlier in the show, I think that's a really important point to make this season. And then they're having success. They're scoring the goals. Everybody's getting them, and everybody's helping out and being a part of it. I think that you do get to kick back and remember that, the National Hockey League is the best league in the world. And, you get to enjoy that too.
What a great time for the Jets to be heading to California with the dads and mentors on that mentors trip. And, it was interesting. Rick talked about, his father at the end of the scrum. I think it was Rennie that asked him, but what a big mentor he is. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of dads on the trip. Of course, not everyone has their dad around. It was really cool to see Josh Morrissey bring his brother Jake. But the timing of this is everything. I can think of previously, some of the moms trips for the Jets or other teams have gone and the team gets in a slump and there's all sorts of noise around the team. This literally could not be a better time for I think those guys to go out on a short trip that has a lot packed into it. But with, as Neil Pionk said, 30 extra coaches on the plane.
Yeah, all of them with an opinion on the power play, I'm sure, having ideas on how to get it going. Neil Pionk is one of the sneaky, funny Winnipeg Jets. I think he gets a little bit lost in the shuffle of the big personalities because he can be a little bit direct media-wise. Like, he just keeps it to hockey away from, once he does get kind of going, he's one of the funniest Jets, I think. So that was pretty cool. I also got to say, Huss, credit to the Jets, for formally calling it a mentors trip, and for Rick Bowness even mentioning it. I think he added it to somebody's question last night too, saying, "Hey, mentors trip. It's not just the dads," because we know that it's not every Winnipeg Jet has their father. I mean, they've experienced tragedy. If you look around, Winnipeg, not every person doing anything has their father with them, and to have male mentors of various types and stripes accompanying the Jets, I think is a really classy move. And I just can't help but think about Josh Morrissey bringing his brother Jake, and to have talked to Josh about shooting on Jake when they were kids, and he's a few years older, so they start with the foam pucks, and eventually they switch to proper rubber pucks, and he's laughing at how many pucks they probably left in between the drywall of their old house in Calgary, and the fact that playing together in the WHL for part of one season was one of the absolute hockey highlights of his life. I mean, yeah, look at them. They've got the same hair, actually, don't they? While we're on that topic.
Wonder if Bones is going to give them any of the business.
Yeah, except Josh is always clean, right? It wouldn't be a move off of the norm for him.
He's cleaned up well. Looks like he's recovered from his facial mishap right before Christmas that impacted his Christmas card. But listen, I mean, he and everyone pulling on the same rope right now. And I mean, there's a lot of ways that we go. You mentioned the power play. I joked to a friend last night that, the Jets are not scoring on the power play just to give Winnipeggers one thing that they can constantly complain about, because, I mean, that's what we do in this city right now. Hard to pick at too much other than a lack of success on the power play right now. But what did you think of the power play last night? Obviously, I mean, even the best power plays score, once out of every third time. I mean, Tampa's got one of the best in the league. I think they were at 28 or 29%. Is it coming around? Are the goals on the doorstep right now, or is there still stuff is there still things in your mind that need to considerably improve if they're going to, start moving up that ladder and get closer to the middle of the pack?
Yeah, there was one power play last night that I think nothing was happening on, and you sort of wondered, okay, are they falling on old habits? They're not seeing what they want. I think there were a couple that were actually pretty effective. And, in the few days since Bone has basically said, we've got to change what we're doing here, one of the things that you've seen a lot of is they're working it over to Nikolai Ehlers on that right wing flank a little bit more often than they used to do. And he's attacking downhill. It opens up when he's attacking his lane towards the net. He's a shooting threat. He's changing the angle because he's skating. So he's got passing threats that open up. That's one of the new things that you've seen. And he's been shooting. Last night, I think his first touch was a shot a couple of times as well. And that's opened up some things. They've moved players around and kept them in motion during the power play too. So it's not just, Nikolai Ehlers goes to Scheifele's spot and then parks there. There's actual movement and flow that happens within that. I think that's opened some looks up as well. Josh Morrissey made a couple of great passes yesterday. My favorite moment of the power play, I know they did just miss backdoor. I think Morrissey to, I'm not sure who, was it Balharry driving the net? But one of my favorite moments of last night was that I want to call it the drop step. Not everybody seems to be basketball savvy. Not even all the hockey players are calling it a drop step. But when Gabriel Vilardi is on the left wing side of the boards, he's behind the goal line, he takes the puck on his forehand, and then he does a drop step into the middle of the ice. He attacked the net last night and then had the presence of mind not to go all the way across the net, but to bring it back. It was a little bit of a fake where he sort of sold Vasilevsky on one idea and then pulled it back the other way. I thought that was one of the most clever plays because you never really see that particular variation. He opened up a part of the net to shoot at, and he just wasn't able to get it done. So there was some stuff to like about the power play. And, as always, power play 2 is a little bit more willing to be direct, and I like what we've seen from them.
Are they shooting enough?
I think they're getting closer to shooting enough. Yeah. I think that last night it seemed to be a focus to shoot early in the possession.
I agree.
Yeah. I think Bonus even commented on that after the game as well. So they seem to be happy with it.
It does seem to be a trend of, and who knows? This has been, when we look back at December, and again, if you'd said, hey, the team's going to lose one game in regulation, who's it going to be to? We've kind of gone over this before. It probably wouldn't have been San Jose. And listen, sometimes things don't go your way that night. But maybe these teams in the Pacific Division might be a little cure to get some good momentum going on the score sheet for the power play. But they did talk about better momentum because there's nothing that can suck momentum away from a team than a dismal power play that can really energize a team that's on the kill. And we had seen that in the past, certainly through the months of December, although it didn't affect the Jets too much in the end results in the standings.
Yeah, I think it's a problem when half of Twitter erupts into the same decline the penalty joke, when somebody goes to the box. Like that is a sign that things have not been going well, when that's the first thought on everybody's mind, whether they mean it or not. I also thought, if you go into those Neil Pionk quotes from last night where he's talking about everybody bought in and everybody's playing well, he specifies 5-on-5 a few times in his excellent answer about what's going well and how they're working as a team in all facets of the game at 5-on-5. And I think it's clear that as a team, they know what the next part of their evolution is going to require. I guess people are probably sick of people like me saying, if that's one of your problems, that's an okay thing because you like to believe it could get better. 5-on-5 has been pretty good. I guess nowhere to go but up from here. Presumably, maybe one of the dads has the answer.
Yeah, well, as I said, something tells me that might come up in some conversations with the dads and mentors over the course of a little while. I don't want to get bogged down and get into this Hartman stuff right away because that can certainly, if the early part of today's show and yesterday is any indication, that can just take us down a rabbit hole and then we're done. But specifically where we're at right now, getting into the new year, post this game, heading onto the road, I wanted to ask you about the defense pairings. And we know what the numbers are. I mean, this team just isn't giving up any goals. How pairing for pairing, how are things trending right now? Or is any ones that are going up, any ones that, maybe their results haven't been as good lately? Or is it pretty much more the same as we've seen, much like what they're doing in the standings with the wins that have been coming lately?
For me, I kind of want to preface the whole whatever is about to come out of my mouth with the idea that things are going well. I think it's zooming into the minutia, like when there's a first overall pick all year, you know who it's going to be, and then you start picking apart their game. I think Winnipeg's playing well. And I think a huge part of why Winnipeg's defense pairs are playing well is exactly what JP Vigier was just talking about. When was the last time somebody pinched without F3 coverage? The coverage is there. The forwards are there. You have forwards willing to commit to that zone defense and protect the middle of the ice. You have Nino Niederreiter last night from the weak side winger spot, reading the play perfectly, dropping low, and taking away a seam pass from Kucherov to, I think it was Hedman dropping, and it might have been a forward, though, come to think of it. But the weak side wingers making the reads that they need to make to kill plays as well, that's going to make everybody look good. And with that kind of team play, I don't think Winnipeg needs to go big game hunting to upgrade that sixth group of D that they've got there. That said, there was chaos last night a little bit. And before Neil Pionk made that great cut out of the corner and that perfect redirection off of Brendan Dillon's pass, he'd made a couple of giveaways. There was a pad tap moment from Winnipeg as Pionk made a giveaway that led to a brief 1-on-0 rush, and Connor Hellebuck had to glove a puck down. There are moments of chaos, but I think that all three pairings can handle what you throw at them. All three of them can handle the role that they play with the quality of team defense that Winnipeg plays right now. So I think there's a lot of confidence that group should have in itself.
Inevitably, the calendar turns and we start looking ahead to the trade deadline. At the beginning of the year, I mean, it was, they need to add, a impact player on the blue line. That was by far the number one priority, and then a gap, and then we can think about other things. With the way that the team has played overall, the results that have followed, and certainly the results for the defensemen so far through 36 games or whatever it is, we've heard more conversations about a 2C, about a second-line center to come in and fortify that forward group and the top six. Right now, and I'm sure this answer might change in 2 weeks or a month, but right now, Murat, if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff and you're thinking about, you've got the opportunity to go for one real impact player, either a top four defenseman or a top six center, what do you think would help the Winnipeg Jets more? Not necessarily now, but come playoff time.
I think it depends on who that player is and what chemistry is found. But for me, give Winnipeg Elias Lindholm at his best. And I know some of the underlying numbers aren't as good as usual in Calgary, but a lot of what happened in the very beginning of Calgary was, I think it's the sort of situation that drains numbers, and I think that Elias Lindholm still has it. So that's the type of player where you can count on his two-way game. You're ideally looking for an upgrade face-offs wise as well. I'm not saying face-offs are the driver of the decision. It's what happens after that. But Winnipeg's power play could use some face-offs. Winnipeg's even strength situation could use some face-offs as well. And for me, if you can add one more dynamic forward into that group that is humming along such that all four lines are an absolute threat out there, and then it's not just, does Tony Nato come out for Kupari? It's what do you do with Tony Nato and Kupari and Gustafsson because all of a sudden your fourth line is so stacked. Nemestikov's got to play on it. I think a lot of that is luxury. But if you can find that two-way top six forward who can play a gritty game as well, I mean, I want to say Nazem Kadri at his peak, but I don't think he's close enough to his peak for that to be a relevant conversation. And then you got contract stuff as well. Another player type who I would like for Winnipeg, and this one I can't find the name to go with it, would be Matthias Ekholm of last year, where Winnipeg's defense can handle the job it's got to do, but one more absolute pain in the ass to play against might go a long way, I think, if the Jets are sizing up a long run.
You know, I've got really nothing to say but good things about the way Nate Schmidt's played so far this year. And listen, I know he makes a lot of money. That ain't changing any at all, folks. If that was the case, do you think this ends up with Morrissey, DeMello, Brendan Dillon, and defenseman X from another team, and then Pionk and Sandberg become that 5-6 pairing?
I mean, there's a lot to like about that, that's for sure. Pionk is having an effective season, even with the chaos, but if you can bump him down to that level of competition, that's luxury. I think you can have confidence in him and Dylan Sandberg to have success as well. Sandberg and Schmidt have been a really great pairing, and you talked about it earlier. Based on the fact that third pairing life is easier than the top four, okay, so what? Or Schmidt gets paid a lot of money, okay, so what? Are they winning their minutes? And yeah, they are. They absolutely are. So you like that. And I think that Dylan Sandberg, as a big part of your PK, a reasonably big body, not an absolute punishing person out there, but certainly plays physical enough, blocks shots, all those sorts of things. If you keep him in that third pair mix and then put him with Pionk, and that's the type of luxury that you're working with, I think Nate Schmidt in that scenario would be an ideal person to have coming in from the press box as needed. And that's before you even get in a Chisholm or Stanley or whatever else that you might need. And I think that would be a tremendous amount of depth if that top four option playing with Dylan was a genuine upgrade, not just somebody who, not just a face puncher because it's the playoffs, but somebody who could play on the offensive side of the puck too, move the puck up the ice, jump into plays, gap well, all that stuff. I mean, if that guy's for real, then Winnipeg's absolutely cooking from top to bottom, plus their depth, and you like that kind of mix.
Well, and that's the funny thing right now, because, I mean, I can't really sit here and make an argument that the Jets need anything. I think their record speaks for itself in the way they're playing night in and night out. But I think we all know that if this team wants to achieve the goals that it has and make a long playoff run, a lot of those playoff games and the teams that are playing, might not be like the regular season just heading into the midway point. And I mean, listen, we all know it's a good place to be in right now, where they're not going to be forced into anything. But I am quite interested in, in people's perspectives on, big picture, long term, where might an ad come? And what might be most beneficial to a team come Stanley Cup playoff hockey, which, despite the way the Winnipeg Jets are playing, and I don't think they'd want to do much different coming into the playoffs, we know that everything around those games is a little different than game 36 of the regular season.
You know what I honestly think, Huss? Like, when I know, I think it was Rennie who said, well, he's heard that there's some big game hunting to be had or what have you. So I've been getting asked about that today. I know that would be a tempting thought. I also know that, Winnipeg Jets having this kind of success at this particular moment in their cycle, going for it makes a tremendous amount of sense. If you can find a way to improve the team, do it. Absolutely. But one of the things that I think is the biggest test for the Jets is coming up this month. Like, last night was the first time in ages where we haven't seen that top line dominate. It was like Brandon Hagel and Braden Point and Victor Hedman was getting the best of Winnipeg's top line. Okay, that's probably a one-off. They've been amazing, Winnipeg's top line has. So that's probably been a one-off. But we know what happened last year, this month, towards the end of it, is that a little bit of the wheels came off of the Winnipeg Jets. And one of the best stories of Winnipeg this season is it gives up nothing for free. Those games you think they should be satisfied in, they're not. Those games that you think, okay, the schedule's not aligning, maybe you won't see a great effort. Well, their game is good enough and they're winning those games. For me, proving that during this section of the season where it's after Christmas, before the trade deadline, there's another gear being hit, play is tightening up just a little bit. Certainly there's a stretch run to go and the playoffs are another level yet. But if they can slay this dragon, if they can, defeat the enemies that are January for the Winnipeg Jets with the group that they have, I am tempted, and I think this goes against the grain right now, but I'm tempted to say what the answers are in the room. And I I was not prepared to be saying that in September of this year, sizing up the ever-growing cap space that the Jets should have.
It's funny you say that, because last night, I think it was Ken, I was checking out KNR afterwards, and Ken, I thought, made a really good point in that, at this type of year, I mean, listen, if there's an elite top 6 player or, a big time defenseman, I mean, those players are few and far in between. I mean, the majority of the players that you see moved at the deadline, are like we saw last year. I mean, Nino Niederreiter, Vlad Nemetsnikov, and maybe the most impactful one that Ken brought up was Barbashev. Barbashev at time was playing on the 4th line, with the Vegas Golden Knights. He also played higher up and was able to do that. And then he cited like what Axel Jonsson-Fjällby's doing right now, and the way Dominic Toninato has performed when he has been in the lineup. And it got me thinking, like, you get those depth players to come in. It's kind of like with the LA trade and what's come from that. The Jets solved a lot of that depth that a lot of times teams are looking for at the deadline before we even drop the puck in game 1.
I got time for that. Absolutely. The depth is there. And I was kind of looking through last night's plays that led to goals, just preparing for this. And one of the things that you see on, I think it was every Jets goal, is incredible presence of mind from a player involved in it that you wouldn't expect from somebody at that place in the depth chart. And what I mean, even on the empty net goal, I don't know if you remember it, but Morgan Barron has to backhand sauce the thing over a back-checking Lightning player. But you can tell, even though he doesn't like turn and look at and see that the guy's there, he knows the guy's coming. He knows the stick's going to be in the lane, and the ability to make sure that he makes that backhand sauce with composure into the empty net. You've got that. Earlier on the same play, Tony Nato in the neutral zone, also presence of mind. But Nemesnikov stopping a puck and then having the presence of mind to move the puck up to a teammate in the neutral zone to create that. Like, there are players who would try to create, but they wouldn't have the read of the ice, and they'd be throwing that puck down the ice, or they'd be throwing it in to the other team for a turnover. That was a play where Winnipeg's, depth players all combined to do the right thing every step of the way up the ice against a good team under pressure. Nemesnikov winning that puck off of Vasilevsky, and then having the presence of mind not just to stuff it on net, but to find the Ehlers, like heads up, in the quickness of that turnover. There's a lot going on there. And I think that, or even Perfetti had the puck knocked off of his stick, but he kept fighting, and he kept fighting through traffic to get the puck on net. And obviously Iafallo on his goal, following up on Perfetti. I mean, there's a lot of hockey sense up and down the lineup. There's a lot of two-way play up and down the lineup. And those are the things that are making Winnipeg's depth look as impressive as it is. Like, these guys aren't just there to eat time. They can create. So I have a lot of belief in the Winnipeg Jets forward group right now. If you can find that Nemesnikov, a Niederreiter for a second-round pick, type of deal that Cheveldayoff pulled off last year, by all means, only make your team better. I just think that Winnipeg has a lot of what it needs in the room, and that I'm like stunned by my own declaration, because I wasn't sure in the offseason, especially heading into it, that this would be the topic that I'd be thinking of right now.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, without, Kyle Connor right now, and obviously Kapari coming back up front at least, I mean, the team has been healthy. They've been very healthy on the blue line, and that can change in an instant. So, I mean, this is a conversation that we'll continue to have. We'll monitor it, but there certainly doesn't seem to be a massive glaring hole in the lineup at any level. And I think it's a credit to everyone that's been around. You just brought up Cole Perfetti. We'll get into what happened on the weekend in a second. I thought he was just phenomenal last night. And, considering, I think what a lot of people's fears were about Cole, dating back to being moved from center after that Vegas game early on and sort of getting run a little bit, to come through that series against Minnesota with what had happened to him, with him being targeted, I thought he played one of his best games last night. And even more impressive, Murat, was, the way he's not shying away from anything. He's not taking runs at guys. But I mean, that one play that really stood out to me was him going around Victor Hedman and just putting his shoulder down, taking it to the net into a dangerous area. His confidence seems to be growing right now, and he's playing a little taller than he might look like walking down the street.
Yeah, 100% he is, and I kind of want to expand this new peak of Perfetti's development to the last 5 or 6 games as well. We talked about all the various posts Winnipeg has hit over the last week or so. A lot of the Nemesnikov posts came off of plays from Perfetti. A lot of his great defensive numbers come from great plays at both blue lines. He's a heads-up player. And when he's going, at Victor Hedman, like you describe, it's not like youthful stupidity. I don't know how good this guy is. I think with Cole Perfetti, I know exactly how good this guy is, but I also can find the pockets of space, underneath the stick, or I can protect the puck. And I think when you look back to training camp and right around there where he was getting hit from behind and all of that, I think some of that probably had an impact on him and how he wanted to approach the game. I also think some of that was timing stuff. I think that having missed as much of the game as he had for at the end of last season into the off season, I think it was going to take a bit for that processor of his to make NHL pace to really start to carve it apart. And I think that we're on the precipice of that. He's making a lot of great plays, and I think it's because his reads are that quick, and he's finding little lanes, little pieces of space on the ice that players his size shouldn't be able to find, but he can because he's reading things really quickly.
All right. So speaking of Perfetti, and I thought you and I think it was Joe Smith did a great job kind of detailing all of this in The Athletic. People can go over and check that article at theathletic.com. Yesterday was a very interesting day. I mean, the weekend was, it was great for the Winnipeg Jets to get those 2 wins. I mean, they answered every challenge, including Cole, who didn't back down at all after what happened early on. But tell us about the revelation that we learned yesterday about the mic and what Hartman had said and your conversation. We played a clip. I don't know if you caught it earlier today. Elliot Friedman saying with Jeff Merrick earlier today that, behind the scenes, the Jets are absolutely livid about what happened, the way that Perfetti was targeted, the fact that, Hartman of all people went after him with only a fine for it. What have your conversations been like around this topic with some of your colleagues? And you're very close to the team. I mean, do you get that same sort of impression about Winnipeg and their thoughts on it all and how that might affect a certain regular season game at Canada Life Centre on February 20th?
Yeah, February 20th. I mean, that I think has got to be a sellout. I mean, it's going to have to become one. It's going to be a bit of a fireworky night, I imagine. Let me just do this chronologically in my own experience to try not to miss anything. So the room opens up yesterday, and I go in, and I had been speaking with Cole and with Morgan Barron for another piece. So I went straight over to that stall, and I was chatting with Morgan. And before Cole Perfetti went to do his scrum, where he, in front of the camera said all that, he sort of confirmed to me that, that Hartman's voice was caught by the microphone. So he was aware. And then in the moment just between that, me and that 2-second chat with Cole about that topic and him going to the scrum, Scott Brown of Winnipeg Jets PR pulled Perfetti and had a quick chat with him before he went out to do the main scrum. And I think when Elliot Friedman in that clip that you played says that, Winnipeg has some strong opinions about this, I just imagine that was a good bit of PRing, making sure that Cole Perfetti knew, the stakes of what was going on, and certainly he can speak for himself. But here are the things that you need to know. And I don't know, maybe that's some interesting behind the scenes stuff that folks wouldn't have known from before the scrum. And then he goes out and he has it. And he seems very comfortable about it. When I watch it, I think that he's very calm about it. He's not like telling tales out of school or anything like that. I think he's more amused than angry that Hartman was, owning up to it on the microphone and everything like that. So okay, fine. But then the conversation with Bowness happens in his press, and he says that, well, hey, you know what? If we had known, it might have been handled a different way. And that's one of the things I've been thinking about and trying to talk to people about over the last 48 hours or so is, well, how do people who grow up in a code-inspired world really feel about this? And I think one of the biggest takeaways that I've had is that people are absolutely livid and think that it is a bit of a joke that Cole Perfetti is eating a high stick of all people. He's not the biggest. He's not the strongest. He had nothing to do with the play. He wasn't even on the ice when Kaprizov took the cross checks. He's not even the most famous star. If you're looking for a superstar in the Winnipeg Jets and you want to hurt him because Kaprizov got hurt, I mean, that's not Cole Perfetti yet either. That's Mark Scheifele or Kyle Connor who got kneed. Or you go down the list, right? I mean, it seems senseless that it is Perfetti eating a high stick specifically as retaliation and retribution. And that's what I keep coming back to. I think that the Jets know that Minnesota is going to be a tough game and a tough out, and there's a certain amount of begrudging respect there. But I think when it comes to Perfetti being the target, I think it's a little bit laughable, and I don't think anybody I've spoken to has argued with me on that part.
No, and I mean, listen, I think there obviously always was some respect, and there still is some, but I think it's a lot less than it maybe was before Sunday. And say what you will about Hartman. I mean, I've called him a rat before. I mean, he's been fined 7 times now and suspended 3 times. That's as chicken shit a move as I've seen in the National Hockey League in a long, long time. And, you know, he can fight his battles. I mean, we all know what happened when he took that run at Nikolai Ehlers as well. And I think we're kind of seeing a common denominator here of a guy that, and whether this is from the team or whether this is just Ryan Hartman, I mean, I don't have a lot of evidence to say it's anyone but him because of these 2 particular incidents. But as I said, I've been looking for that copy of the code lately, and it's been tough to find. But I'm not sure that running the smallest, or in this case, a small young player, where that, like, what chapter of the code that is, because for the most part, I think people have thought that it was was way over the line and frankly ridiculous and does not look good on Hartman and certainly or the Minnesota Wild. So Feb 20, what do you think happens? And we all saw Viel get called up for the game on Sunday, which got people, kind of, I don't necessarily up in arms. He never even played in the game, but might we see a call up and an activation of a VL or a Bauer for that game? Or will this have quieted down a little bit by then? I have a feeling it doesn't because of everything that we heard yesterday, especially from Bones.
Yeah, I don't think it quiets down. I don't think that any of the heat goes away. This goes back, right? This is not a one-off game situation. Yeah. It's not what happened this weekend. It includes Hartman's run on Ehlers last year and whatever Minnesota was upset about at that time. It includes Logan Stanley kind of like hitting and then falling on Kaprizov to injure him last year as well, too. There is bad blood that goes back a while. So that's not dissipating by February 20th. My big thing is, like, how is it going to go forward? And what's it going to look like when we see it? I think, what do I think? What is my actual honest opinion about this? I think that one of the most gutless things to do in a situation where everybody knows violence is on the way is to go through the back door of violence. Like, you see that fight between Pat Maroon and Adam Lowry at the start of the game. I think there's respect in that. I think that there's whatever crazy sport this is where you get to interrupt it to punch each other for a while. Everybody seems to be on the same page about that. There's a cultural agreement. It happens. Do you want to fight? Yes, let's do this. They go. I think Brendan Dillon would have felt similarly about Middleton's run at him. You know, that's a fight that I think he would not have been shocked by. But you go back to, I think what's really angering Winnipeg in this situation is Hartman went through the back door of violence to high stick Perfetti in the face off the face off, which isn't, the consequence of it is relatively minor. You go back to last time Hartman hurt a Winnipeg Jets player to run a guy in the middle of the ice away from the puck on a play that has nothing to do with the hockey that's being played. That's also what I continue to call the back door of violence. That's unsuspecting stuff. That's a knife in the back instead of in the chest sort of deal, to use movie terminology. And I think that type of gutlessness is what I will be looking to see if there is that more of it on February 20th or not. I think the best thing Winnipeg could do is do it through the front door, offer people fights, win those fights if they can, all that sort of stuff, and then bury them on the score sheet as well. Because if it becomes a thing where guys are getting suspended all the time, when Winnipeg's further ahead in the standings, Winnipeg probably has more to lose. And I think I'd want to consolidate top spot in a conference before settling cheap scores like that.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with you. Well, we've got just over, I guess, 6 weeks or so until that happens. And I have a feeling this will not be the last time it is discussed on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Murat, have a great one. You want to fill us in on anything exciting for Jet fans coming up in the Athletics soon?
Yeah, thanks for having me as always. We got some stories coming up. There's one about a dad in particular that I'd like to tell pretty soon. I think there's a lot of good stuff going on that front. I am the worst salesperson ever. I look at people on Twitter and on your show all the time, and I'm like, they can sell a 200-word story better than I sell something I worked for months on, and I got to get better at that. But there's good stuff coming, and I hope that you'll enjoy it.
Well, your batting average is pretty damn good over at the Athletics, so we will look forward to it. Hey, have a great week, and enjoy staying up for these late night games. And we'll look forward to catching up next week in the middle of a big homestand, where hopefully we can continue to see some positive trends at the gate and in the seats as well. Have a great one, Murat. Always great, and shout out to your stylist today for the special look for WST today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Good stuff. There's Murat attached at WPG Murat, and make sure you're subscribing and checking out The Athletic for all of his work. Hey, shout out to Brad Roy. Yo, hey, great to get a chance to catch WST almost live again. What a year so far. Belated best of the season and new year to all. Brad, great stuff, and thank you very much for the super chat. All right, we're going to, I'm sure, get back into this topic in just a moment. But hey, I got to give a big thanks to our friends over at Little Brown Jug. Don't forget, gang, the crisp, refreshing generic lager, not only available at Canada Life Centre along with 1919, as Little Brown Jug is now a great partner of the Winnipeg Jets and available at Craft Beer Corner. But for $19.99, you can get an 8-pack of Tall Boys at your local vendor, or frankly, wherever sells great beer. Check out the Little Brown Jug display at your local beer store the next time you're in. Make sure you check out Craft Beer Corner and grab a generic or 1919 the next time you're at a Jet game. And when you got time, pop down to the brewery and tap room down on William Avenue and try them all right off the tap and pick out your Little Brown Jug favorites. Hey, a happy new year to the gang at Royal Sports. I know there's a lot of excited Jet fans right now. Maybe have a little more confidence in their choice for maybe their next Jet jersey. Of course, we are going to see the RCAF jerseys again on our next WST night for January 27th when the Jets are taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs. You can get all the jerseys, all the best in Jets merch, including a bunch of exclusives you won't find anywhere else at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. While you're at it, check out their Bombers section, NFL, just in time for the playoffs, MLB, NBA, and so much more. And, of course, when you're thinking hockey, you think of Royal Sports as the sports superstore. 12 months a year, but also snowboards, boots, bindings. They've got it all. You got to get down Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway, and check them out at Royal Sports Pembina on Instagram for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. Now, listen, kind of a slow night tonight with only 2 games in the National Hockey League. We'll get to the Coolbet lines in a minute. But tomorrow, Friday, 2 great opportunities to get together with the gang and you're at your local Boston Pizza and to see the Jets go at it. Late games, 9:30 on Thursday. That means you'll just get to take advantage of the late night happy hour at that time from 9 to 12. No better place to catch the Jets than Boston Pizza. Ice cold schooners, world famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and so much more. And hey, you can always make an order to get it hot and fast to your home at bostonpizza.com. All right, let's get Remo back in here for a minute. Great stuff with Murat. and you told me that he was going to get a special look today based on based on Bones' comments yesterday. But he really did nail the Seinfeld look for today's show.
Yeah, Murat's been coming on, with long hair, beard for a while, lengthy, lets it go, doesn't get his hair cut that often. And he showed up at the Jets press conference, a couple weeks ago with freshly cut hair. He debuted on this show, and it was just a new look. And Rick Bowness caught off guard, I think, when he was answering the question. He's like, hey, what's going on here? And shows up looking, the hair combed down. I think someone asked in chat, hey, did Murat just get out of the shower? And saw a couple low flow pressure shower head comments in the chat. And anyone who watched Seinfeld episode knows what we're talking about. And yeah, here's the picture of Jerry admiring his new hair. So shout out to Murat and Haley, I saw in chat as well for playing it up. So nicely done.
Murat is listen, he's one of our faves. Always great having him on the show, and took it to another level today with the special look. All right, normally we try and get into this on Monday, but obviously Monday was a holiday. Yesterday was a crazy day with all the fallout from the weekend Minnesota series, but as we've done for the last couple weeks, let's make it a 3-box and welcome back Remis, and of course the third member of the squad, Connor Hrabchak, who has been killing it with the Jets this week. A lot of momentum for Jets this week, and we can partially thank the team, but also thank you, Connor. Great response for it, and another new high. Not surprising coming out of this weekend with so much to talk about after the sweep of the Minnesota Wild.
Oh, yeah. People are fired up. They want to watch every bit of content, read every article, everything to do with the team right now. People want to see it. And they've been so much fun to put together. So I'm glad people are tuning in. The response has been terrific. And tune in. They play Sunday night this week. So Monday morning, I'll have episode 11 right back at you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, really? Okay. I'll have to be up. Okay. I'll be up late to make sure that one works.
It's a 6 o'clock game. Luckily, it's not like the 9:30 game. That would have really sucked. But yeah, it's a 6 o'clock game, our time, against the Coyotes. And of course, San Jose, Anaheim, Arizona on this road trip, back-to-back games with San Jose and the Ducks. And we'll get to that in a minute. But, Remis was completely unhinged before the show yesterday talking about the Ryan Hartman interview. I found I spent more time getting into the mud with idiots on Twitter over the last couple days than I have in probably the last 2 years. Emotions high. What do you make about, all that business? And in particular, this high stick to Cole Perfetti and what we learned yesterday that Ryan Hartman said to him in the game.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that stuck out to me the most was the Perfetti talking about how he was mic'd up, and the other team is supposed to know that he's mic'd up. And Ryan Hartman, I don't know, I guess like you write the number on the whiteboard and maybe he's just walking out. He's so fired up for the game. He wasn't even looking and didn't see that Mike 91 was written on the board. Or he saw it and didn't care and just said it anyways. I that's the most puzzling thing to me, is he would either know, or I guess he just didn't know and didn't see it and said it anyways, then got caught on camera. But the Jets have done a great job. They tweeted out, I think it was yesterday or the day before, after Perfetti said his comments, and they said, the next episode of Runway is coming January 16th with a little wink emoji. So I think a lot of people will be tuning in for that.
Yeah, no kidding. Listen, Sarah and the team do a great job on that. But Reem, I would suggest that if that episode is coming up with everything from behind the scenes from the Wild sweep going into the new year, that is going to smash runway records for viewership at the Jets YouTube channel.
100%. This is all about marketing, Hustler. Maybe there's a conspiracy that Ryan Hartman's in on it, knew he was mic'd up and said on purpose, hey, I'm going to get you. And we'll see if, they put it out and how many views they get. I'm trying to find how many the last episode of Runway did. Oh, the one from 2 months ago, 16K. That's pretty good. And there's certainly been a lot of hype for this upcoming episode. So I'll be tuning in. I want to see it. I'm sure they'll show it. They show it during intermission as well, highlights from it. So Exciting stuff from a marketing perspective. I don't know, like, can we have someone on to say, like, hey, what are the ticket sales now for February 20? Because a lot of people hyped up for it.
Well, I see Gregory in the chat. He sent me a DM. He goes, I got my ticket for February 20th. I'm not missing that. And I think, listen, hopefully we can keep filling the building. And again, really great crowd last night. That was another thing that, I mean, we need to get back to this point. It was kind of an ugly start for a few of those early weekday games, and we won't get into the work that the organization needs to do. Hopefully that's going on right now, because as someone that's sold tickets for a long time, this is the time where I would be picking up the phone and talking to people to try to get them back on board. But 4 big games next week, which we'll get to. And then, that February 20th game, I think, will be brisk sales going over the next little bit. Hey, got to shout out to Nick at Topline. Big ups to Huss taking a run at Kipper and Bourne. My jaw was on the floor when I watched that. And that was my unhinged moment off air, like Reem had before the show started yesterday. But Justin's a good dude. I mean, I've done work with him before back when he was doing stuff with Coolbet. And I did say to him today on the show, make sure to ask Kipper if Hartman is obligated to fight someone bigger than Perfetti or Ehlers on February 20th, when hopefully those guys and maybe some people outside of the market will actually watch the team that's been the best in the NHL for the last couple of years. I do want to hit NFL for a minute, but Connor, as far as this road trip goes, like, it's funny when you look at the teams and the games that they did not win in the month of December. It was a game where I thought they played very well against the San Jose Sharks, only scored 1 goal, and whatever, you're going to lose once a month. And then they had the extra time losses to Montreal and Chicago. Those are all non-playoff teams. They rolled Boston, beat Colorado, the Kings, obviously last night, Tampa. We haven't seen a lot of flat performances from the Winnipeg Jets overall, but I mean, what do you make of this opportunity, but also challenge for the Jets with a very tight schedule and a lot of hockey, but playing some of the, let's just say teams that have not been close to the Jets level this year?
Yeah, I'm not too worried, because when you look at those losses, you look at the Chicago game, especially where Bedard scores 2 incredible goals, and then you look at the San Jose game. Those games, the Jets thoroughly outplayed their opponents, and they hit 1 million posts in the Chicago game. San Jose game, they got goalied a little bit, and the Jets haven't got goalied too often this year, but when they do, it's against like some of the worst teams in the NHL, which is weird. So I'm not too worried about how they're going to play over these next 5 games. You get San Jose, Anaheim. Arizona is actually a playoff team, so that's a big game on the road as well. And then you come home for Columbus and Chicago. 5 games the Jets should win. They're higher than all 5 teams in the standings. This is where they're at. Their expectations, these teams are going to be taking a run at the Jets because they know the Jets are good. They're a top 5 team in the league by points percentage, points, whatever you want to look at. But as for the opportunity that you mentioned, I think the power play is at the front of everyone's mind. You play these 5 bad teams in a row, got to get the power play going. Like, this is the time. It can't keep costing you when you come back up against these good teams. And if you look at the Chicago game where they lost, the power play cost them in that one. So they could even cost them a game against San Jose tomorrow night. You never know. And I think that the power play has to get going. And then even last night, the top line, there was a bit of a line mix with Scheifele and Nemestikov switching on those top 2 lines. Maybe they go back to Ehlers, Scheifele, Velarde, and maybe that line can get back on track. They've gone pointless, at least for the first 3 games and 2 periods before they switched last night and Ehlers scored the game winner. But they hadn't gotten any points. They weren't really contributing offensively. That line has gone cold, so maybe getting that line back on track. But the power play, taking care of the teams that you should take care of, all front of mind, or should be at least for this 3-game road trip and the first 2 for the homestand.
Hey, Reem, I mean, we've talked about this every day on the program, been pretty confident the way things have been rolling and the way that they've handled business night after night. I will admit, the one time that I got a little freaked out was when I saw the stat going into Thursday's game. So the Jets last lost in regulation to the Sharks. Since then, the Sharks are 0-9-0. going into tomorrow night's game. And the minute I heard that, that's when I'm like, oh my God, I did not need to hear that. But again, I think a lot of the things that, we can't compare this year's team to teams 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I think they've earned the benefit of the doubt there. Wouldn't you agree, Reem?
I think it's fun to compare this year's team because they're still wearing the same jersey. Obviously, different team, different players. You have Nemesnikov, Niederreiter, Iafallo, Velarde. It's amazing. The Jets have had so little turnover the last couple of years, but it seems like there's been a bit of a reset here heading to this season, at least with the forward group. And yeah, it was Mike McIntyre tweeting out the Jets since that 2-1 defeat, San Jose over Winnipeg on December 12th. Jets 7-0-2, outscoring their opponent 35-18. The Sharks 0-9-0. They're outscored 41-14. Goal differential not in their favor. That's what is a minus 27? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yep.
So let's some quick math here. Some quick math, and yeah, they haven't been good. They've definitely surprised at times, but they've been on the wrong end of a lot of games. They're rebuilding. You'd think the Jets should crush them, like that lower team in the standings that they are. But hey, you never know. And even if they did lose, when the Jets have lost these games to Montreal, they lost to Chicago. Really. When they lost, they still look fine. They look like the same team. Just some games the puck goes in easy. Some games it doesn't. And I think you can look deeper and say, yeah, in those games, the power play, they had chances to win and they didn't. But overall, where the majority of games are played 5-on-5, this team is very consistent. And look, sometimes you're not gonna win every game. They've certainly done a great job in December, just about doing that. But we'll see how it goes. You can lead to the right process, and the results will follow. And they've followed more often than not.
Well, and Connor, this right now is, when I mentioned that opportunity, to take advantage of this schedule, to stack up these wins, to continue playing the way that they've been playing. Like, I don't think it's been lost on anyone that's been paying attention to the out-of-town scoreboard for the past 3 weeks. The Jets have had some big-time games against big-time opponents, have won those games. And then we've looked and, Dallas and maybe especially Colorado has had sort of softer schedule, and good on them for getting it done. But this is a chance for them to take a real run at first place. And, maybe depending on the schedule and what their opponents or what their division rivals have coming up, the opportunity to, continue this run in games that they're very much capable of winning. And establish themselves as the team to beat in the Central Division.
Yeah, like you said with Colorado, it seems like every time you're scrolling Twitter and you see the Avs, they're in like turmoil and they just lost a terrible game. And there's a new quote from the locker room where one player is calling out another. But then you look at the standings at the end of the night. There they are, top 5 in the NHL, still number 1 in the Central Division. I know the Jets have 2 games in hand on them. And here you go. Your next 2 games are San Jose and Anaheim, back to back. So like you said, they have a chance to eat, you got to think sweep with these next 5 games. You don't want to get ahead of yourself. Obviously, you take it one game at a time if you're one of the players, but we're not one of the players. That's not what we're here to do. Let's talk about this 5-game stretch. It's 5 teams below them in the standings. The Jets are probably undoubtedly the hottest team in the NHL right now, dating back to December 1st. These are 5 games. 4th. Yeah, these are 5 games you should win. Like, you should be able to put up more than 3 goals against all 5 of these teams. And we know the Jets aren't allowing more than 3. Like, they haven't allowed it since November 2nd, right? Like, these are 5 games you should win. Again, you don't want to get ahead of yourself and look at 5 games at once. But 5 games below them in the standings. The Jets are rolling right now. It all starts tomorrow with San Jose. And that stat does scare me. But, yeah. Why not? Why not roll the table?
Do either of you guys know this answer? And if not, maybe somebody in the chat does. They said that last night with the 26th game in a row of 3 goals or less was the 3rd longest streak in the expansion era since 1967. Do we know what number 1 and 2 on that list? Is there a high water mark that we can kind of point to and see if the team can keep rolling and break the record? Reem, did you catch that at all? Or
so I'm responding to people in the chat here. What break which record? About the which one? Sorry, I was
Okay.
People are talking to
3
me in
goal.
chat. Okay, the 3 goal.
What?
Mhm.
How do you
Look?
Anyways, Mike
Yeah.
was the one in the scrum that said that. And I don't know where he got that from.
Okay,
But
the
maybe.
number of the consecutive games allowing 3 or less.
35 everyone's saying in chat.
No, that's okay. 35 is in the modern era.
Yeah, like since 67, right?
Yeah. The one after that was 44 from the Bruins in 28-29. Does that count?
No.
1928?
Definitely not.
1928? No.
No. We're talking about a period of time, the modern era of hockey, i.e., since the Leafs last won the Stanley Cup. Here we are.
So yeah, the Jets at 26. Here it is. They're at 26 games. The St. Louis Blues in 2011-12 had 27, and Minnesota Wild in 14-15 had 35 straight. Yeah, and then there's a bunch of teams. You know, the Red Wings 52-53. But yes, the 35 is a record for modern, and all-time is 44 games from the 28-29 Bruin.
All right. Okay. So we've got the number 26 right now. Make it 27 tomorrow against the San Jose Sharks, and then keep it rolling. How do you guys think the goalies will shake out this trip? I mean, LB played Sunday. Hellebuyck played last night. I guess probably Helly, San Jose, LB on the back-to-back in Anaheim, and then Connor back against the Coyotes. And then I wouldn't be surprised if Brossoit actually got the game against Columbus. Because again, like there's a lot of hockey right now. It's not until 2 weeks from now that the Jets actually see 2 days between games. Then they have the Islander game and then 3 days off before they hit the road again.
Yeah, I agree with your layout there. I don't know about LB in the Columbus game, but I think Hellebuyck's a lock for the Chicago game, for the Saturday Philly game that I'm blocking with my head here, but that one right there. And then the Islanders game too. They're a playoff team, so I think Hellebuyck gets that start as well. I think as long as you pencil in Hellebuyck for Arizona, Philly, New York, the rest can either be either or, because again, the Jets' defensive structure is so good, it doesn't even really matter who's in net right now. That they, against a team like Columbus, Brossoit would be just fine, and they would feel just fine playing him.
Okay, one more for the roundtable before we quickly hit NFL on these lines, because we do have to get the pod up. I brought this up to Remis earlier. Tomorrow we're going to find out the all-stars from all 32 teams, one player per team. So if we're just taking one, and again, often numbers will dictate. I mean, if your goalie's been your best player, but there's 5 other goalies ahead of him, you know, they might pick a different player. I have a hard time imagining that Connor Hellebuyck isn't the name that we hear tomorrow. How likely do you think that is? And if it's not Connor Hellebuyck, who would be the guy?
I think it's got to be Hellebuyck. And if it's not Hellebuyck, I'd go Josh Morrissey. I mean, he's following up last year just like exactly the same in terms of numbers. He's near a point a game, and he's kind of flying under the radar. Last year, there's this whole Josh Norrisy movement, and he ended up 5th, I think it was, in Norris Trophy voting. But this year, it just kind of seems like everyone's like, yeah, the Jets' defensive structure is great, and they're winning a ton of games, and it's Hellebuyck and this trade, and Scheifele's playing great, but no one mentions Morrissey. He's having an equally impressive season, and him being an all-star wouldn't be a shock to me at all. But like you said, I don't know how you leave off Connor Hellebuyck. I mean, the stats he put together in December, he's got his own point streak going, 8-0-2 in his last 10 starts. Like, you just can't really deny that as a goaltender. First in the league in goals saved above expected. He's up there, I'm sure. I haven't checked the rankings, but he's up there, I'm sure, in save percentage, goals against average, wins, all those stats. And I know there's good goalies in the Central, like Georgiev, I think was the first goalie to hit 20 wins in the NHL last night. I know Jake Ottinger's good, but you can't deny what Connor Hellebuyck's doing right now, and I'd be shocked if it wasn't him named tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and I see a lot of 55s in chat. I kind of think it's going to be like Scheifele will be considered, and maybe again the other 12 guys are going to be picked on voting. So I think it is going to be incumbent of everybody in the chat and all the podcast listeners to get out there and vote for the Jets. I think Scheifele is challenged by the fact that, he's a point-a-game player, which is great and probably all-star worthy. There's a lot of competition in and around that. And I think what the Jets are being known for right now is their defensive acumen. Now, I'll sit here and tell anyone that asks me that Mark Scheifele's been better this year than he's been at any point dating back to 17-18. I think you could argue that the way he's playing defensively makes him a more effective and has helped the team win more. I'm not sure if that gets someone to the All-Star game. Although, Reem, I think there would be something in some ways poetic, maybe that's a bad word to use it, but to have Hrabchak as the guy that is named. Morrissey voted in. And, focusing on the defense, the Jets All-Stars are 2 defensive players, when in reality, every single forward for the Winnipeg Jets and the way they're playing might be the biggest reason why the Jets are having the defensive results that they are.
Yeah, it's amazing watching the Jets forwards. It seems like every guy, except for maybe a couple, have played on just about every line. All the lines playing the same. The top line hasn't been going the last couple of games. Oh, who steps up? Point per game, Dominic Toninato, Morgan Barron on a point streak, Vlad Nemestikov. And you couldn't say that about last year's teams. If the top guys weren't scoring, the team wasn't winning because they weren't scoring 3 goals. Listen to the stat. When they score 4 or more goals this year, 16-0. And that's pretty easy math when you've given up 3 or less. It's pretty easy math when you've given up 3 or less in the last 26 games. The All-Star format, it's changed. This year was kind of tough to get multiple All-Stars from a team. 1, because you have 1 from every team. And 2, they had this divisional format. So if you were in a division that was stacked with forwards, like the Central was when Chicago had so many guys, it would be really hard for the Jets to get a forward. Like when Blake Wheeler had so many great seasons, he couldn't get in, and they would default to like Byfuglien or Hrabchak, or I believe Scheifele was in as well one year. Scheifele's a point per game player, but for me, he's because of the position he plays, center. He's got just strictly points, 36 points in 36 games. That's 18th among centers or players listed at center NHL.com. So I think it's tough for him. So I would want to say Scheifele to argue the point. I think Hrabchak is a lock. He's 100% in. And Morrissey will probably be the other one. But you can certainly make an argument for Scheifele. And they are having 4 teams of 3-on-3. But it is a draft this year. And, they have captains. It's going to be all fun. They're going to be all buddy. And it'll be...
Hrabchak should be a captain.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're going to have goal. I don't know how it works for goalies. Is a goalie?
He would be hilarious if he was a captain. Like, him being exposed to people with his sort of quirkiness and character. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm just imagining him being at the podium, making his picks and stuff like that would be absolute great entertainment. And I did see a quote where I think it was it SK? I want them not to pick Helly for the All-Star game and piss him off so he gets even more motivated, if that's possible. Hey, listen, he could probably use the time off too. But I'll tell you what, the way Laurent Brossoit is playing, I don't think they'll have any question going to LB, certainly more than we saw in the second half of the season. All right, we're going to get to the Coolbet lines here in a minute, but because we do have to get this pod up. But Connor, let me hit this with you right now. All is good back in Ninerland after the Christmas Day bump in the road against the Ravens. Got the win. The bye is secured. Guys will be rested. They are clearly the favorite right now to make it to the Super Bowl, minus 125 at Coolbet to win the NFC. What NFC team scares you the most? Like, when you look at the list of contenders of the teams that'll be there, is there one team you would either prefer not to play, or you just think, listen, I think we all agree the Niners should get there, but is there one as someone that follows the team closely that you maybe a little less confident against than the others?
I think outside of Dallas, no. Like, Dallas, I said it a few weeks ago, like, they're a different team at home. And like you said, the Niners just wrapped up the 1 seed. So the Niners will be the home team no matter who they play, which obviously gives me the confidence that they'll beat whoever they play. But the Rams are weirdly hot right now as well. Like, if they go on some sort of Linsanity run, into San Francisco for the NFC Championship. That would be kind of crazy. But yeah, that was nice. The Jets were playing the Wild, and I wasn't really paying attention to anything because the Niners were playing the Commanders, whatever. And then I flip over and I see the Cardinals beating the Eagles, and I was like, wait, this means that the Niners would lock up the 1 seed. So I became a huge Cardinals fan for about 15 minutes, and then Kyler Murray pulled it out. I know Jeff Kabilis in the chat is a big Cardinals fan, and he was pretty stoked about that win. I just want to say thank you. Now the Niners can rest week 18. They got the bye. They got the 1 seed. And I'm not worried about anything until we go to the Super Bowl, honestly.
Well, dude, and speaking of the Cardinals and Kabilis, I said this yesterday. I'm not sure if you were here, you missed it. But one of the great troll moves of all time was Kyler Murray showing up in Philly to the link wearing a Sidney Crosby Penguins jersey and then winning. I mean, that was awesome. You know, Reem, I will admit this, and I've been out on Detroit at times this year. There's something about the Lions and just how, some would say reckless, but how aggressive that Dan Campbell is, that makes me think the Lions actually might be the most dangerous team. It certainly isn't the Eagles. And we've seen what happens to Dallas on the road. I don't have a lot of confidence in them. To me, it might be a team a little further down. Man, they can run the ball. They do have playmakers. And Campbell's going to go for it. You know that. But how good would this be in the playoffs? I think there's a very good chance we get a Detroit Rams game, which with the Stafford and Jared Goff would be absolutely juicy. And that would be in Detroit, where for the first time ever, the Lions are the favorite. But I'll tell you what, if the top 3 seeds win in the AFC and the Browns win, probably as favorites on the road against whoever wins the AFC South, how good will Joe Flacco and the Cleveland Browns be going to Baltimore in the playoffs? Are you kidding me? Now maybe we should believe the league is scripted.
Juicy. I mean, yeah, Cleveland's going to be resting just about everyone this week, I believe. I think the Rams are scary, man. If they went into Detroit in a dome, Detroit's got this leaky pass defense. Matt Stafford's coming on hot. Cooper Kupp's healthy. He's slinging the ball really well. I would not want to face the Rams lower down. Bucks, I don't buy them. Seahawks, nah. Packers, they've been interesting. We'll see if they can get in. I think it's shaping up to be a Baltimore 49ers. Lamar Jackson, I think he's got the MVP locked up after the last 2 weeks. Cleveland's got this scary defense. Can they shut down Lamar? And it would be interesting if Flacco could continue throwing for 300 yards against the Ravens, who's, they shut down the 49ers and shut down the Dolphins the last 2 weeks. It's looking to me like the Ravens would, just because they beat San Francisco, would be the big favorite to win the Super Bowl, and be a great story for Lamar Jackson, who they've came into the playoffs before as favorites. I remember they got upset by the Titans a couple years ago. That was a big upset. They've had a number of disappointments. It seems like the path has been opened because the Chiefs, they've sputtered, and Buffalo needs to win to get in after we questioned like a month ago saying, they're going to have to run the table. Can they do this? They're playing some tough teams, and they've won. They just need to win one more, and they'll be in. They could be interesting in the playoffs as well.
Well, and here's an amazing. Now, I would love to see the Jags lose, because that would mean the winner of Saturday night's Texans-Colts game would be winning the division, and I do have a future on the Texans to win the division, so that's a little selfish of me. But there is a scenario, probably a likely scenario, if the favorites win, that Sunday night game between Buffalo and Miami will be, if the Bills win their AFC East champs, they get the 2 seed. If they lose, they're out. And, I mean, you can't have better stakes. Bills right now, a 3-point favorite right now. And, that must-see TV on Sunday night. But the Saturday night game between the Colts and Texans is going to be a win-and-in, basically playoff game as well. I did see the knee of KFC taking a shot at the Chiefs. Hey, doubt the Chiefs at your peril. That's just all I'm saying. They kind of got it together a little bit more last week. the defense is better than any defense in the Mahomes era. A couple of guys can step up and catch a couple passes. I wouldn't want to go up against them. That much I'll say. And Lamar doesn't have a great playoff history as well. So AFC wide open. But why not question of the day for Not Autocorp for all of you? NFC, who's the biggest threat to the Niners? Put us into the chat. I am quite interested in what people have to say about that. We'll kind of get into the lines for the games overall on the weekend in the lock shop on Friday. And we will certainly, discuss it when we get to Friday's Coolbet lines as well. Slow night tonight, though, in the National Hockey League for the fellas. Devils in Washington to take on the Caps. The Caps plus 148 home dogs after playing last night. And the Leafs minus 198 favorites against the Anaheim Ducks plus 166. Connor, considering the Leafs have this lofty spot in the standings, they had a very impressive win last night, shutting out the Kings on the road. They've only got 11 regulation wins, though. I mean, this has all the makings of like a 4-3 shootout win for the Leafs.
Yeah. I mean, the Leafs, like you said, regulation wins have not been their forte. And they seem to, like, they're fine. Like you said, they're in a playoff spot. They're not the Oilers who struggled to start the year and are fighting to get back in. But yeah, they got a weird thing going on there where they just can't close out games in regulation. But yeah, I tuned into a bit of that game last night where they beat the Kings. That was an impressive win for them. LA is weird at home, man. They're really, really good on the road, and then they get home and they have some problems. But Toronto's weird in terms of regulation wins.
Well, Remo, I know you're a guy that watches quite a bit of West Coast hockey and the Kings games. I have to admit, I mean, I know the Kings went on that record-breaking run. What did they win, their first 11 on the road or something like that of the season? Like, I'm not sure at the end of the year when we break down their 41 games on the road, they'll have this 11-game winning streak, and then you look at the other 30, and it probably is more like about 500 or a normal record. But hey, all those games at the beginning of the season count, and that's a big reason why the Kings are where they are right now.
Yeah, I follow a lot of Dennis Bernstein, the fourth period, who comes on with us. He said, look, the Kings are 29-5, but in their last 11, they're 4-5-2. The offense, hasn't really been there, wasn't there last night. And, he said 8 straight games without a goal from the defense. You hear Rick Bowness talk about how much offense they're getting from the defense, and I think it's definitely been a bit of a struggle for the LA lately, and they did get off to that hot start. You're right, that still counts, but a lot of it is how are you playing when the playoffs begins, and we'll see if LA can pick it up. I wonder, goaltending was so good for them early, but you have Cam Talbot and Phoenix Copley, can they get it done for an 82 games? And something we've talked about is like how many teams would love to have the stability of Connor Hellebuck in goal right now. A lot of teams out there with goaltending problems. Speaking of the Leafs, that's certainly one of them. And they're a team that, historically, if you ask any Leafs fan, they're playing Columbus, they're playing whatever team, and they're huge, minus 200 favorites or something, and they lay an egg. We'll see what they do tonight as back-to-back against Anaheim. Only 2 games on the schedule. I might take tonight off, Huss, and I don't know, catch up on some other stuff here.
You know what? We let's fire up the power washers.
Oh, the power. Yeah. So Hustler and I got Xbox for Christmas on Black Friday, and I told him I've been playing a lot of Power Wash Simulator. You should join me. We should play together. We can wash that backyard. It's so big. There's only so much power washing I can do. Let me pull up a video of this game here. It's wild.
It's mesmerizing at times. I also downloaded Forza 5.
Yeah.
I should basically just go and get NHL. I haven't done that yet. And I'm also looking forward to trying Goat Simulator 3. I'm not entirely sure about how it works, but I watched the trailer. It looks pretty bizarre. So I'm in it. If you have any other great
are you a goat in the goat simulator? What's the concept? Yeah. You are the goat? Okay.
Yeah, you are a goat with a bunch of other goats, and It's like
Wow.
a Sim City sort of thing for. Oh, my daughter loved Goat Sim.
my goodness.
All right, well, we'll see it.
I played Goat Simulator with my son. He liked it. We ran around. You go on like trampolines and stuff. Yeah, and this is some video of power. This is the backyard one where you have to power wash the backyard. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. You get different size nozzles, Huss. It's so relaxing. It's pretty fun.
The chat.
This is a dad's dream right here.
The chat is yeah, exactly. You know what? This is like for all youngsters. This is what it's going to be like in 20 years when you got your own yard. You could just get out there and wash whatever you want. I live in a building. I don't have that opportunity, so we do it virtually. And Remis and I are going to do some power washing simulator. I'm seeing some love for the goat simulator, so I'll come back with a report on that as well. And okay, Joey, I love playing Farming Simulator 2022. I have noticed that. I've looked at it many times in the Steam store. And, you know, coming from an agricultural area in Manitoba, being from the city, I could probably learn a lot about farming through that. So
Sure.
I might be trying that. It's just a shame about an Xbox. I've been an Xbox guy. Oh, I think the controllers are way better than the PlayStation. That's actually, when it came down to it, like 10, 15 years ago, why I ended up siding with the Xbox was all about the controller. Didn't like the PS controller very much. And anyways, the great thing is now it's, Remis, these are like, if someone has a PS5 and we have Xbox S, we can play NHL against each other, right?
Yeah, most games are becoming to be cross-play. I mean, what system you play is becoming more
but
and more.
Hockey is.
Hockey's, if we played on a team, ESHL, yeah, well, you could play anyone. So I've been telling Connor we got to get a game in at some point, Team WST and EASHL, but haven't exactly.
I'll be the coach. I suck.
I
like one-on-ones. I like just playing, you know, with my team against your team and see if I can hang out. We will have a match, you know, and this is Remis already has built-in excuses. Oh, I usually just play ESHL. The line will be big, but I think I can cover it.
I'll do the play-by-play for the game.
The Masters Golf from EA Sports. I am interested. Yeah, T-Will, exactly correct as usual. Xbox controller way better than the PS controller. And yes, as far as the golf games go, the game that I've played the most by far in the last few years has been PGA 2K23. Before it was 2K21. Before it was the Golf Club. I am intrigued about the EA Sports one, although I was burned so badly by the Rory McIlroy that basically ended the franchise.
Yeah,
I have waited on that. But if we do get some good reports on that, we may have to pick that up as well. Hey, Connor, great stuff as always. Keep it up. And as I say, everyone will be looking forward to Monday morning to get into the new week with Jets this week. And we'll look forward to having you back on soon. Keep it going, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. And sorry, Remo, for not telling you about that earlier. That video will be ready Sunday night.
I thought the game started at like 9, so you'd be finishing at like 3 a.m. or something. But no, I don't care. I'll be up. And one thing we didn't mention, I know Connor, you were in there when Bonus made the Seinfeld. Did you get the Seinfeld reference? You're a bit younger than us. Were you familiar with the barbershop episode?
So no, but my dad is a huge Seinfeld fan. So I came home and like as soon as I said it, his like eyes lit up. But no, I didn't get it. But the media room was just like crying, laughing. It was great. That was great.
We need to get comment from Libel on that because he is the biggest Seinfeld guy. He can pretty much recite all the episodes.
Well, it was 1 year ago. I had Libel on. I think you were away. And Libel cursed the Jets. He didn't believe they were like in the similar spot and you're first, and he didn't believe they were for real. So I'm actually curious what Libel. It's like deja vu what Libel thinks of this year's team.
Yeah, but let's remember, Libel came back. He asked to come on to bless the Jets this season.
He blessed them,
and look at what's happening. So listen, the Rabbi is in the good books right now, and I can tell you that he isn't in it now. Tristan Rivers' music is correct. School of Let's just play one-on-one NHL. Well, 94 with manual goalies. That's the height of hockey gaming. The knee of KFC taking another run at me, saying, well, listen, I kind of admit I'm not in his league in hockey. For crying out loud, he was a Twitch streamer before we started doing this. That's sort of almost the way we got into doing this video-wise. But don't count out an old head with some skills on the sticks. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Anyways, big thanks to Connor for jumping on today. We should get out though. This was, oh my God, this is one of our longest shows. We got to get this podcast up right now for people on the way home. Let me shout out our friends at Aikens Lake though. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting back there at some point this summer. Check out aikenslake.com for everything you need to know about the Aikens experience and an unbelievable world-class fly-in fishing destination where you can be on the water in just a couple hours from the city of Winnipeg. And big thanks to Coolbet as well. As I say, not a ton to wager on tonight. There are 2 games in the NHL. But check out the Lock Shop tomorrow at noon. And if you haven't played a Coolbet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus on your first deposit up to $200. Great turnout today. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already on your way out. Big thanks to JP Vigier, Murat, Tesh, Connor for jumping on, Remo for killing it as always, and all of you. We got a game day tomorrow. Jets and Sharks. A little revenge, maybe, on the last team to beat the Winnipeg Jets in regulation. We'll break it all down tomorrow as the Jets hit the road for the Dads and Mentors trip. And 3 games in 4 nights beginning tomorrow in the Shark Tank. Thanks to all the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Have yourself an awesome night. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 right here on WST.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.